Hello everyone, I'm very glad that you listened to my story. Please give me a follow and like the video if you enjoyed it. Feel free to comment and provide feedback so I can improve the sound quality. Yes, I will now continue the unfinished story. Chapter 49, Chapter 49, Two Different Matters. Chapter 49, Two Different Matters. I can't escape. Gusin Zhou sighed. His secret realm transportation device had already been lost in the previous twist of the Earth vein. Even if the teleportation device was still there, the space on the mountain peak was controlled by these demons in some way, and the ancient star continent would not be able to leave. Blood Chi Star was the third realm of martial arts, the ability of the Star Jade realm. It could open up the acupoints of the human body and further excavate the treasures of the human body. If the martial arts novels that Jiruo had read in his previous life were said to store the true chi of martial artists in the Danshin, then the chi, blood, and stars of the Star Jade realm were the Danshin. After all, the Danshin was just an aperture in a sense. These aperture points could store a large amount of blood essence power. Every time one was opened and nourished, it would allow a martial artist's strength to take a huge leap. When necessary, it could also be used as a desperate measure. A martial artist's vitality force could effectively restrain the power of a demon. In a sense, the damage caused by the self-destruction of the Vitality Star Whirlpool to a demon was even greater than that of a nuclear weapon. This was the power of attribute restraint. Damned human, how dare you bomb me? The moon-swallowing toad's face was unusually ferocious. Kill him. Children, I'm sorry. I can't save you. Gusin Zhou sighed. Gusin Zhou suddenly laughed as he faced the ferocious demons. Eat me? Are you even worthy? He laughed loudly and suddenly slapped down. The remaining 69 blood essence star whirlpools connected and the 5 chi meridians in his body circulated. His entire body turned into a pure golden color and the light was unusually dazzling. The star whirlpool fused with his energy meridians, and a powerful martial will condensed into a huge golden martial art body behind him. It was like a furious diamond. Kneel down. Gusin Zhou roared. The golden body of martial arts moved in unison with Gusin Zhou, and a palm that was imbued with boundless power struck the top of the moon-swallowing toad's head. The demons were shocked and furious. Gusin Zhou's golden body of martial arts was rapidly solidifying, as if it had turned into a huge golden statue that emitted the last rays of light. Gusin Zhou's body also maintained its golden appearance, his expression frozen in the moment of rising anger. The moon-swallowing toad was suppressed on the spot. It struggled and roared repeatedly, but it could not break free at all. Damn it! Damn it! He's losing his strength, it roared. He can't hold on for long. I must eat him. Gusin Zhou's consciousness was still clear. He knew very well what he was doing. If nothing unexpected happened, he would suppress the moon-swallowing toad in this manner until the end of his life. He would exhaust everything and solidify his body from then on, becoming a true martial arts statue. If he was lucky, if the future human descendants could find the statue that he had turned into, they might even be able to comprehend some of the martial techniques he had mastered from the martial arts golden body statue through observation. But that was under the circumstances that nothing unexpected happened. Now, he had self-detonated 3 Vitality Star whirlpools. His golden body was incomplete. As time passed, his strength would only become weaker and weaker. The golden body would also collapse in the near future. He didn't leave anything behind. In the end, I still didn't manage to do anything. Gusin Zhou sighed. However, there was another consolation. The martial examination was about to end. In the remaining time, these great demons would probably not have the mood to find trouble with their compatriots before they broke their martial arts golden bodies. Chirp dash, this is the situation. The wind god falcon gave a simple introduction of the situation, then lowered her head and went to play with her child. Chirp dash, the moon-swallowing toad and the one-eyed giant used the treasure that you humans gave them to refine the moon and sun of the myriad beast mountain. As a result, they were bound by the rules of the mystic realm and were unable to leave the myriad beast mountain. However, their strength soared because of Vissel only just found out that the treasure would improve them so much. That human was severely injured, and the suppression state would not last long. That moon-swallowing toad was suppressed for almost 2 days and was about to go crazy. It wanted me to eat that martial artist along with it, and then devour all the humans in the myriad beast mountain to pull me into its camp. If I didn't agree, they would kill me first and divide my power to prepare for the possible revenge of the humans. Onto Wind God Falcon checked the bloodline of her children and was surprised to find that the bloodline of these 2 newborn little guys was actually evolving at a speed visible to the naked eye. As a mother, of course, she knew that under normal circumstances, such a thing would not happen. The bloodline of the Wind God Falcon clan was extremely powerful, and in a sense, strength also represented stability. Normally, the Wind God Falcon's bloodline would not have such an obvious evolution. Then there was only one possibility: it was human martial arts. Although she had never learned from Jiruo before, The wind god falcon was quite knowledgeable. She could tell the difference between her two children and herself at a glance. They were breathing differently. That special breathing method seemed to be able to further excavate the power hidden in the bloodline. Ondu wind god falcon tried to learn it, but she found that she couldn't learn it no matter what. It wasn't that she couldn't learn it, but she couldn't understand the essence of it, and it didn't have any effect. Jiruo, what did Auntie tell you? Liang Shixian saw that Jiruo's face suddenly became serious after talking to the wind god falcon, so he couldn't help but ask curiously. Jiruo thought for a moment and told Liang Shixian about the conversation she had with the wind god falcon. After Liang Shixian heard this, he immediately became anxious. Then what should we do? Jiruo, it's still the martial examination period. That person should be a patrolling martial artist, right? The auntie said that the patrolling martial artists suddenly appeared at the top of the mountain. It should be caused by the inexplicable transfer previously, right? Able to suppress the top of the mountain, a big demon warrior, he must be very powerful. Jiruo, we have to think of a way to save him. Jiruo looked at Liang Shixian in surprise. It was unknown if Liang Shixian had realized that he was already subconsciously considering the value when he said this. How? Jiruo spread out his hands. One of us has just entered the realm of Chi Meridian, and the other is a level 9 martial apprentice. Are we going to the top of the mountain to die? But Liang Shixian opened his mouth and said, "El can't just not save him, right? Such a powerful martial artist is much more useful than the two of us. Loaf, I know, I can't just not save him, right?" How? Jiruo asked again. Liang Shixian paused for a moment and suddenly said, "Jiruo, can you help me beg Auntie Wind God Falcon? Let her help. Auntie said she can't beat him." Chirp dash, there are too many of them. Liang Shixian sat there in a daze and suddenly muttered, "Jiruo, I've seen some documentaries about us humans fighting against the demons. Those documentaries couldn't be found through normal channels. They were very gory and very realistic. Powerful martial artists were always at the front lines. Even now, the borders of Great Xia were still plagued by demons all year round. Our crops were destroyed, our land was plundered, and our compatriots were killed. The demons had thick skin and flesh, and conventional firearms could not cause effective damage. However, in the documentary, even ordinary people who could not practice martial arts would pick up weapons to protect their homes. They would cry and shoot at the demons. They were unable to open up their chi meridians, unable to use their chi and blood power, and unable to cause effective damage to the fiendish demons. They were afraid, they cried, but no one retreated. I've never seen such a scene with my own eyes, but just the pictures on TV can always make me feel shocked and moved from the bottom of my heart. Liang Shixian looked at Jiruo and said seriously, "Jiruo, we can't do anything, but we have to do something. Not being able to do it and not doing anything were two different things." Jiruo was silent. He did not know what to say. A moment later, Liang Shixian suddenly chirped at the wind god falcon. That stubborn expression seemed to be trying to use the language of the wind god falcon to say something. The wind god falcon looked at Liang Shixian in surprise, then looked at Jiruo and asked, "Chirp dash, what is he saying? Is there something wrong with your brain?" Jiruo didn't know whether to laugh or cry. Liang Shixian kept telling Jiruo not to be so childish, but how was Liang Shixian better than Jiruo now? Wasn't Liang Shixian childish now? But was he going to stop just because it was childish? At this moment, Liang Shixian stubbornly imitated the sound of the wind god falcon. Although the wind god falcon and could not understand, Jiruo, who had the common language, could ignore the language barrier and directly understand the meaning expressed in Liang Shixian's voice. He begged the wind god falcon again and again, making feeble promises, all promises that he could do. For example, cooking for the wind god falcon, or helping the wind god falcon take care of her children, or helping the wind god falcon tidy up her nest and clean up. These weren't what wind god's son needed, but it was the biggest promise Liang Shixian could make. He had no experience in dealing with demons. Jiruo looked at Liang Shixian with a complicated expression. Perhaps Liang Shixian was right. They couldn't do anything, but they had to do something. Ondu wind god falcon suddenly said, "Chirp baby, can you teach me your martial arts? Mommy wants to learn too." She had been self-studying for half a day, but she had not learned anything. Instead, her body felt a little uncomfortable because of the strange breathing rhythm. "Bao, chirp dash, no, this is what master taught us. Without master's permission, we can't casually spread it." Chiu Xin Chiao, chirp dash, that's right, that's right. Because they had signed a master-servant contract, the two little fellows were psychologically very close to Jiruo. If they were to simply divide the levels of intimacy, then the status of Jiruo in their hearts was actually the same as that of the wind god falcon's aunt, or even higher. The wind god falcon was stunned. She looked at Jiruo and said, "You took my child as your disciple." She had thought that Jiruo had only taught her a little, but she had not expected him to take her in as a disciple. Jiruo smiled awkwardly. The wind god falcon continued, chirp dash, 0h right, I wanted to ask you just now. Why do you keep holding onto the feathers that I shed before? Chapter 50, adding on to the generation. Chapter 50, adding on to the generation. Jiruo. Liang Shixian shouted for a long time, but when he saw that Ondu wind god falcon ignored him, he realized that he didn't have such a strong language talent as Jiruo, so he turned back to ask Jiruo for help. Can you help me talk to Auntie? We don't need her to help us save that teacher. As long as she can help us find other martial artists, it'll be fine. Liang Shixian had already determined that the martial artist who was currently at the top of the mountain and in an extremely dangerous situation was a patrolling martial artist. In theory, it was not wrong to call him teacher. Chirp dash, don't think about it. Ondu wind god's son said, chirp dash, the patrolling martial artists you're talking about should be the stronger ones among the humans who come in during this period of time every year, right? I've seen some. The martial artist on the top of the mountain is much stronger than those patrolling martial artists. Let's not talk about whether those patrolling martial artists will run away when they see me. Even if I really help you spread the news, they won't be able to reach the top of the mountain. As she spoke, the wind god's son suddenly changed the topic and said, chirp dash, 0h right, can you teach me the human martial arts that you taught my baby? You want to learn? Chirp dash, one thinks so. This martial art is really magical. It can actually further develop the bloodline power of our wind god falcon. Jiruo thought for a moment and said seriously, then, Auntie, if you learn it, will you become stronger? Chirp dash, 0 of course. Chirp Ondu wind god's son said, the power of us demons comes from our bloodline. Your martial arts can allow my child to further develop the power of his bloodline. Naturally, it can also allow me to become stronger in a short period of time. Jiruo pondered. He didn't know that Ant-Wind Falcon couldn't learn his full focus breath. What he wanted was that he had already taught Dabao and Dabao. After the martial exam was over, he, Liang Shixian, and Luo Jian would have to leave. At that time, Ant-Wind Falcon could learn from Dabao and Dabao. Although Dabao and Bao said that they needed their master's permission, the wind god Falcon was still the mother of the two little fellows. Therefore, Jiruo felt that Ondu wind god's son was asking him out of respect. Auntie, if you learn my martial arts, how strong will you become? Jiruo asked. For example, how many of those guys at the top of the mountain can you beat up at once? Ondu wind god Falcon thought for a moment, chirp dash, how would I know? However, he should be able to fight one or two more. Most demons were afraid of lightning. Liang Shixian couldn't understand what Ondu wind god Falcon was saying, but he could understand Jiruo. He understood that things had taken a turn for the better. He quickly pulled Jiruo's sleeve and whispered, Jiruo, you've already taught me anyway. However, Jiruo was thinking about something more important. The contract ability that came with the Beast Master title had a few prerequisites. Firstly, the difference in strength between the two sides couldn't be too big, and the one who planned it had to be the stronger one. Secondly, both parties had to be willing. Thirdly, he couldn't be of the same race as Jiruo. Ondu wind god Falcon definitely fulfilled the third rule. She might have fulfilled the second rule, but it was impossible for her to fulfill the first rule. She was too strong. Therefore, Jiruo was a little conflicted. He couldn't guarantee that Ondu wind god Falcon wouldn't become enemies with humans in the future. If Ondu wind god Falcon's strength soared after learning his concentrated breathing and became enemies with humans, then he would really be helping the enemy. Ever since he had transmigrated, the people and things he had encountered had affected Jiruo. It was equivalent to the college entrance examination. Before the examination began, the form teacher would patiently ask the students to survive. Even before entering the examination room, the principal would confirm again if there were any students who did not want to participate. The martial arts examination had an average mortality rate of 3% per year. It was not mandatory. One could skip the examination. No one would blame them, and no one would say anything. There was nothing wrong with wanting to live. All the examines had made their own decision after careful consideration. Everything had already been made very clear. In the martial examination, life and death were up to fate. The class monitor took good care of his classmates. When danger came, he would choose to stay behind and buy time for his classmates to escape. When the patrolling martial artists were poisoned and unconscious, the first thing they did when they opened their eyes was to kill a way out for the students in danger. Although there were people like Lu Neng or Zhang Quan who were afraid of death, they were still children. They were selfish because they wanted to live. Therefore, Jiruo couldn't accept that he had really done something to support the enemy. But just as Liang Shixian said, Jiruo Jiao had already taught them. In the future, when Jiruo Jiao was not in the Myriad Beast Mountain Mystic Realm, the Wind God Falcon's family would be together day and night. The wind god Falcon's aunt would always have the opportunity to learn how to concentrate on breathing. Even if he didn't teach her, she could still learn it. If he taught her, on the wind god Falcon's strength might increase greatly. It was very likely that she would help them save the trapped patrolling martial artist. After hesitating for a moment, Jiruo decided to teach. However, before that, Jiruo still had to go through some procedures. Although he knew that it was unlikely to be effective, it was still a psychological comfort. Auntie, I can teach you, but I need to sign a contract with you. Chirp dash, what contract? Onduwind God Falcon was a little curious. What was the use? Could it be that the so-called contract could restrain her? Chirp dash, yes. Jiruo nodded solemnly and said, I hope that you will never take the initiative to make an enemy of humans again, nor will you use the power of this martial art to harm humans. Moreover, if you encounter any human suffering in the future, please help as much as you can. I hope that you can become a friend of mankind. Onduwind God's son was a little surprised. She had thought that Jiruo would take the opportunity to make some outrageous request. For example, taking away all the food reserves in her nest, or letting her go to the top of the mountain to save that martial artist under great pressure. Unexpectedly, this was it. Hadn't she always been kind to others? What kind of contract was this? Although she was sure that Jiruo's martial arts would increase her strength, she was not sure how much. In any case, it should allow her to protect her child better. Chirp dash, one promise you. The contract has been made, Jiruo said seriously. Those who break their promise will be punished by eating rocks. As soon as he finished speaking, clang, 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 system judgment in progress. Please wait a moment. Contract, De Bao Erbao. Detected that anti-wind god Falcon and De Bao and Erbao are directly related by blood. The host's strength is far lower than anti-wind god Falcon's. What should we do? A teacher for a day, a father for life. Host, little friend. Equal status. To better teach the younger generation, to achieve equal communication between parents and host children. Contract of equal signed successfully. Remark, parents are just grown-up children. Jiruo was shocked. The contract was actually successful. Come, auntie. I'll teach you how to focus your breathing. Chapter 51, do you really not have a bottleneck in your creation? 1. Chapter 51, do you really not have a bottleneck in your creation? 1. Even though full concentration breathing was only a breathing technique, it was not so easy to master. Didn't Liang Shixian practice for such a long time, but he had only just found some feelings. After Jiruo carefully taught the key points of fully concentrated breath lightning, she let the wind god Falcon learn it on her own. If she didn't understand anything, she could ask herself. However, the wind god Falcon was stunned. Jiruo had taught her the special breathing rhythm that she had just learned from De Bao and De Bao. It was exactly the same. She had already tried it just now. She couldn't learn it. Was Jiruo just brushing him off? It shouldn't be. What's wrong? Is there anything you don't understand? Jiruo couldn't help but ask when she saw that the wind god Falcon didn't move. Then hurry up and give it a try. Only by practicing first can you know where the problem is. Jiruo urged. Chirp dash, good. Onduwind God's son took a deep breath with doubt and began the cultivation of fully concentrated breath lightning. Hiss dash. White air currents visible to the naked eye poured into the beak of the wind god Falcon, and its chest quickly bulged. A fine electric current suddenly flowed on the surface of his body. In an instant, a strong wind blew and lightning surged. Chirp chirp dash, 1ts done. It actually works. Onduwind God's son was pleasantly surprised, but at the same time, she was also a little shocked. She had already mastered the same method of fully concentrated breathing through self-study, but she was unable to produce the desired effect. If it were not for the fact that she had already mastered the two treasures and had already developed the power of her bloodline to a certain extent, she would have thought that it was because of the difference in race that she could not learn Thamelni, and, after Jiruo personally taught it once, she was actually able to make this martial art work. Was it Jiruo who taught him in more detail? No, it wasn't. Jiruo had taught her personally, and she had comprehended it herself. There was actually no difference. There was only one explanation. Was this the power of a contract? Onduwind God Falcon was shocked. Her powerful aptitude allowed her to quickly begin developing the technique in depth after mastering the fully concentrated breath. The wind god Falcon was still in its adult stage, so its comprehension ability was naturally much stronger than the two little fellows. Moreover, this martial art was extremely compatible with her attributes. After mastering it, she would advance by leaps and bounds. Chew dash, my bloodline is about to transform. Please help me take care of the child. Onduwind God's son hurriedly said. The wild wind condensed on the surface of her body and transformed into a huge wind egg that wrapped around her. As the wind god falcon breathed, the wind egg began to move rhythmically. The thunderbolts swam on the wind egg, leaving behind purple lightning patterns. Jiruo looked at the wind egg with envy. Judging from the current state of the wind god falcon, its mastery was definitely not as simple as just having a glimpse of it. Jiruo only mastered the full focus breath at the beginner's level because his saber and sword duality buff was only at the beginner's level. Therefore, the sword techniques and saber techniques that he had learned through this buff could not be quickly increased in proficiency like the iron palm. However, he could slowly increase his level through long-term cultivation. It was just that Jiruo didn't want to go through so much trouble. If he had more vegetable fields and grasslands, he would have everything. Why would he waste that effort? Jiruo, did you succeed? Liang Shixian was pleasantly surprised, but then he said with some hesitation, although I know you're worried, but what was the use of a verbal contract? Why didn't you ask Auntie for help just now? Jiruo smiled mysteriously. We don't need to invite her. Look, Ondu Wind God Falcon is already undergoing a bloodline transformation. She'll definitely be stronger after the transformation. By then, will she not go to the top of the mountain to get back at us? At that time, wouldn't he be able to save his teacher? Liang Shixian was stunned for a moment, thinking that it did make sense. However, but Jiruo, have you ever thought about what would happen if Auntie took a longer time to transform? Liang Shixian asked hesitantly. Jiruo looked at Liang Shixian, what the f***ck? As the bloodline of the wind god falcon began to transform, De Bao and Er Bao seemed to have received some kind of call. The two little fellows were wrapped in two smaller wind eggs and transformed with their mother. Rosie was no longer tortured, and her talent had completely changed to endurance. Of course, it was still unclear if it was completely solidified. This little fellow seemed to be very angry about being kicked like a ball. After De Bao and Er Bao began to transform with their mother, little Rosie went straight into the food store, where she specially picked high-grade ingredients and spiritual fruits and stuffed them into her mouth. Meow, meow, meow. When I eat more and become stronger, I'll definitely scratch your faces. She said fiercely. 5 minutes later. Rosie, whose stomach was so full that it was round, lay in the food store, moaning. She could not even stand up. Her expression was unusually uncomfortable. She had eaten too much. After Jiruo confiscated the Wanxiang mirror, her appetite finally returned to normal. Class President, how did you discover such an important problem? Jiruo pondered for a moment. Liang Shixian was also a little dumbfounded. Don't you know that demons are very weak when their bloodlines transform and that it lasts for a long time? I know, but I didn't expect this bloodline transformation to happen so suddenly. Jiruo felt a little annoyed. What should we do now? Jiruo thought for a moment and said, then why don't we wait? Tomorrow is the last day of the martial examination. If it really doesn't work out, we can make use of the time to go to the top of the mountain and help that teacher share some of the pressure. How about that? He should be fine if he was careful. The martial examination was said to be 7 days, but in reality, the time in the Myriad Beast Mountain was only 6 days and 1 night. On the 7th day, he returned. They all had the mark of the Mystic Realm teleportation device used for the martial examination on their bodies. This mark was relatively special. Even if they died, when the time was up, their corpses would be teleported back. Of course, if it really reached that stage, the examinee's corpse would probably no longer have a human form. But how do we get down? Liang Shixian said worriedly. He wasn't afraid of sharing the burden, but this sky-floating island was 10,000 meters high in the sky. Without the help of Ondu Wind God Falcon, they couldn't go down at all. Don't worry about that. I have a way. Jiruo said as he looked at the Wind God Falcon Ondu that had turned into a wind egg. But before that, I still need to make some preparations. What preparations? Liang Shixian was stunned. Jiruo did not answer. He quietly observed the rhythm of the 3 wind eggs. He could understand a part of the rhythm. It was the rhythm of fully concentrated breath thunder. It contained the power of controlling lightning that was originally contained in the wind god Falcon's bloodline. It seemed to be even more brilliant than Jiruo's self-created fully concentrated breathing thunder. In comparison, Jiruo's breathing technique was really childish. After all, it was a power that had been passed down for countless years in the bloodline of the Wind God Falcon clan. Jiruo's full concentration breathing thunder seemed to be just a key to unlock the power of the Wind God Falcon. However, Jiruo wasn't disappointed. He wasn't someone who couldn't figure things out. Since there was something better here, he would just incorporate the better part of the other party's strength into his breathing technique. No matter what, he would not be at a disadvantage. Jiruo's talent was not at the peak. He was able to create his own martial arts only because of the buff of sword and saber duality. Normally, he would not be able to improve this breathing technique that could be used for cultivation. But if you plan to take advantage of the loopholes. At the beginning of its creation, fully concentrated breathing thunder was created as a breathing technique that came with Thunderbolt Flash, so it could receive the buff. The effects of cultivation were only inherent to the basic breathing techniques that Jiruo had referred to. Liang Shixian watched as Jiruo stared at the 3 wind eggs for a while. The faint blue-white electric current on the surface of his body suddenly turned purple, so much so that he could feel the slight numbness and pain passing through the air when he stood beside Jiruo. Liang Shixian sighed in his heart that Jiruo's talent was really terrifying. However, before he could finish sighing, his eyes suddenly widened. Jiruo didn't stop observing. After perfecting the fully concentrated breath, thunder, Jiruo began to comprehend another part of the power contained in the rhythm of the wind egg. That was wind. Jiruo's breathing rhythm began to adjust slightly. With the support of his chi meridians, wisps of wind slowly curled around Jiruo's body. Closing his eyes, comprehending, opening his eyes, and pulling the wooden stick. Liang Shixian didn't even have time to react when he saw Jiruo brush past him and knock his head with the wooden stick in his hand. Different from the speed of the Thunderbolt 1 flash, this new martial art wasn't slow, but it seemed to focus more on flexibility. Light and agile. Elegant. I finally created another sword technique. It wasn't easy. Jiruo said pretentiously. You don't even have a bottleneck in your writing. This is martial arts, not an essay. Chapter 52, Chapter 52, Auntie will bring you guys to fight? 1. Chapter 52, Auntie will bring you guys to fight? 1. Stepping forward slash. Jiruo kept activating his stepping on the breeze as he flew past Liang Shixian. His movements were light and elegant, and he was free and unrestrained. With Liang Shixian's strength as a level 9 martial apprentice, it was difficult for him to react in time. Jiruo Liu's movements were too smooth. Jiruo, this is Liang Shixian asked. Gale sword art. How was it? Handsome, right? Jiruo said with a smile. He pulled out the Myodeo behind him and began to perform other moves. Stepping forward was still fine, but the wooden stick could not withstand other moves. Slashing steel flash. Jiruo stabbed out with his saber. A breeze curled around the blade, as if the wind was aiding the speed of the saber, but also as if the saber had pierced through the wind. A white light that only existed for a moment actually pierced out. The white glow looked like a crack in the wind. At the same time, a faint layer of wind lingered on the blade. This second slash turned from a stab to a pick, and a whirlwind appeared. Gale swordsmanship, not bad. Jiruo waved her knife happily and sheathed it. From now on, call me Happy Wind Man. He could continuously release steel slashing flash. As long as he could withstand it, he could accumulate wind power and release it in one strike to create a hurricane. Jiruo, this saber technique? Liang Shixian asked dryly. It's swordsmanship. Gale sword technique. Jiruo corrected him seriously. Liang Shixian felt his teeth ache. But you clearly used a knife. This is the setting. What F***ing setting? 6th day, evening. Meow dash, master, are you really going? Little Luo Qian was lying on top of Jiruo's head. She was puzzled by their decision. Meow dash, Rosie doesn't want to deal with the big demon's teeth. Jiruo was stunned for a moment and said, it's not a stuffed tooth in this life, there were some things that one had to do. He did not expect that he would lie to those tree demons about going to the top of the mountain to be a toothpick for those great demons. Load was actually true. The stronger a demon was, the larger their body would be. Just his small body was probably not enough to fill the gaps between the teeth of those big demons. Fortunately, because it was too small, he didn't need to stuff his teeth. Rosie was about to cry. Meow. But I'm not human. Jiruo thought about it and changed her words. Rosie was speechless. She looked back at the 3 wind eggs behind her and whispered, Meow dash, why don't we wait for Auntie to wake up before going, master, I'm afraid. Rosie did not know why she was so afraid of going to the top of the mountain. She felt that there was a voice in her heart that kept telling her not to go. Liang Shixian gripped the standard longsword with a chip on the blade that Jiruo had given him, feeling a little down. He had been cultivating since last night, but the full concentration breathing taught by Jiruo was always a little lacking, and the opening of the energy meridians was always a little lacking. He had already vaguely grasped some of the feelings, but he was unable to grasp them and break through. A grade 9 martial apprentice was still not enough. He kept taking deep breaths to adjust his state of mind and emotions. Be good, don't be afraid. Jiruo rubbed Luo Qian's head and comforted her. Rosie can take a beating now. She won't die. Jiruo wasn't spouting nonsense, because ever since Luo Qian heard that Jiruo was going to take her to the top of the mountain to cause trouble, she was extremely afraid. There were 3 plus signs after tenacity overnight. He could take a beating. Rosie. Puff. Liang Shixian was taking a deep breath to gather his emotions. He wanted to make himself look more tragic and see if he could be lucky enough to break through. However, before he could finish brewing his emotions, he suddenly spat out a mouthful of air because of Jiruo's words, and his emotions became incoherent on the spot. Is there anyone who can comfort a cat like you? Jiruo saw that the atmosphere was livelier and grinned. Let's go to the top of the mountain. Quietly enter the mountain, don't shoot. How do we get down? It was already evening. After leaving the floating island, they rushed to the top of the mountain and shouted some harsh words. The martial examination was almost over. At that time, the two of them would be able to return directly. They also knew that with their own standards, they could not change anything. However, they could shout and attract the attention of those demons, helping the patrolling martial artist to share some of the pressure. Not only that, but they could also let the patrolling martial artist feel at ease and wait for the Jiruo duo to return to call for reinforcements. It was even possible that the demons would be wary of attacking the rat. It killed several birds with one stone. Jiruo chuckled and pointed at the sky. Watch carefully, my turn. Smoke. Just as Jiruo was about to summon the Wanxiang mirror, a gust of wind suddenly blew beside him. A strong gale swept over a thick black cloud. Purple lightning swam in the dark clouds. Jiruo suddenly turned around and saw the sky full of lightning dancing wildly. The wind raged. With the three wind eggs as the center, they seemed to be cheering, dancing, and worship. Kaka. A soft sound came from the largest wind egg, and Jirong was shocked. Because common language allowed him to understand the sound of the wind egg shattering. After that, a series of crackling sounds echoing with the rumbling thunder in the thick black clouds that covered the sky. Dazzling purple lightning shot out from the crack in the wind egg. It was as if the heavens had struck a gong and lightning had appeared. Screech. Awesome. The crisp cry of an eagle resounded through the sky as the wind egg exploded. Ondu Wind God Falcon broke out of the shell and looked even more gorgeous. There were long green tail feathers behind her, and dense purple lightning covered it. Two purple feathers hung down from his originally green head, and his green body was decorated with purple feathers, as if he had bought a limited skin. Its wings were both purple and green, its right wing flapped, creating a strong wind, and its left wing flapped with purple lightning. Noble. Magnificent. Powerful. Ondu Wind God's son, who was originally a peak 4-star, had reached half-step 5-star. De Bao and Er Bao also broke out of their shells one after another. Because of their bloodline transformation, they directly advanced to 3-star and entered the growth period. Its body expanded, and its wingspan exceeded 3 meters. Luo Qian suddenly stopped panicking and said happily, meow, meow, meow dash, that's great, master. We don't have to stuff the teeth of those big demons anymore. Auntie is awake. Ondu Wind God's son looked at Jiruo with an exceptionally gentle gaze. Chirp. Thank you, human, your name is Jiruo, right? Thank you very much. Jiruo didn't know how much progress his fully concentrated breath thunder had brought to the Wind God Falcon, but it seemed that he had gained a lot. You're welcome, Auntie. How many can you fight now? Jiruo grinned. Ondu Wind God's son knew what Jiruo was asking about, so she cawed happily, chirp dash, one feel like I can fight. Ha 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 ha. She could have directly advanced to 5-star, but her bloodline transformation was too rushed and she did not accumulate enough energy. Secondly, the upper limit of the Myriad Beast Mountain's mystic realm was so high. Once she broke through, she would have no choice but to leave the Myriad Beast Mountain. In that case, her two children would have no choice but to be separated from her. Therefore, Ondu Wind God Falcon forcefully woke up. Feeling the intense hunger in her body due to the excessive consumption of her advancement, Ondu Wind God Falcon turned around and glanced at her ingredient store. The current her no longer cared about those ingredients. These things were not very useful for her advancement, she needed something of a higher level. Hearing this, Jiruo laughed and raised the feather of the Wind God Falcon that he had picked up earlier. He said, in that case, do you want to go to the top of the mountain to get back at me? Previously, they bullied you because they had the strength of many beasts. Although I'm not very strong, I'm willing to go with you. Ondu Wind God's son lowered her head to take a look. Chirp dash, little Jiruo, you seem to like Auntie's feathers very much, that feather doesn't have much strength left. Auntie will give you 2 new ones. As she spoke, Ondu Wind God's son flapped her wings, and a feather fell off from each of her wings. One green and one purple, they split into wind. Lightning and wind lightning, and were carried by the breeze, falling into Jiruo's hands. The 2 feathers were the hardest and sharpest feathers on the Wind God Falcon's wings. This gift was filled with sincerity and even triggered a system notification. Congratulations to the host for obtaining, Ondu Wind God Falcon's gift, Wind and Thunder Twin Feathers. Type, Weapon. Rarity, Purple Epic. Characteristic 1, Sharpness ++. Characteristic 2, tenacity ++. Characteristic 3, wind elemental affinity. Characteristic 4, lightning elemental affinity. Characteristic 5, Ruyi. Origin, onto wind god falcon's wind and thunder wings. Remark, this is a gift from an elder, please take good care of it. Current owner, Little Host, this item can be included in the card collection. Jiruo was very happy. He circulated his blood essence power and poured it into the twin feathers. He discovered that he could actually control the feathers to become bigger, smaller, longer, shorter, thicker, and thinner. This was the law phenomenon of a high-level demon. It was very thoughtful of her to attach this ability to the two feathers. Onto wind god falcon flapped her wings, and the originally shapeless wind and thunder suddenly turned into two giant claws, grabbing Jiruo and Liang Shixian and placing them on her unusually broad back. Chirp dash, go. Auntie will take you to fight. Luo Qian was no longer afraid. She raised her paws on Jiruo's head and said excitedly, meow, meow, meow. Go, go, go. Chapter 53, Chapter 53, Teacher, we're here to save you. Chapter 53, Teacher, we're here to save you. Night fell. Gu Xingzhou was in a state of sanctification and was abnormally tough. He maintained an angry expression and had been clapping for nearly 3 days. The situation was much worse than he had imagined. After exploding 3 Vitality Star whirlpools, there was a flaw in his golden body of martial arts. The power continued to leak out, and the cold aura on the moon-swallowing toad's body continued to erode him. Not only that, but there was also a one-eyed giant beside him. The Cyclops' gaze was as dazzling as the sun. It was like a real sun. For the past few days, those demons had not left, as if they wanted to devour the exhausted ancient star continent as soon as possible. The one-eyed giant had been guarding by Gu Xingzhou's side. Its single eye, which was as glaring and scorching as the sun, was constantly staring at Gu Xingzhou. Blood essence power leaked out, coldness invaded his body, and the sun was scorching. The ancient star continent was suffering. Even his indestructible body of Vajra became more and more fragile under the dual effects of extreme cold and extreme heat. But the more he did so, the calmer he became. Martial artists were never afraid of hardship or torture. Tortures and suffering were nothing more than tempering oneself on the path of martial arts. The only thing he was worried about were the children. Over the past few days, the demons had been harassing the ancient star continent with all kinds of language. The 100-eyed devil crow had also constructed a terrifying scene of a large number of humans being eaten by the demons. They wanted to use this to destroy his martial will. Although Gu Xingzhou knew that it was fake, he still couldn't help but worry. Suddenly screech. A crisp eagle cry resounded through the sky, and Gu Xingzhou's heart thumped. It was the voice of the wind god falcon. Yesterday, these demons seemed to have talked to the wind god falcon about something. As they were conversing in the demon language, Gu Xingzhou did not know what they were talking about. However, they had a big fight later on, and it seemed that they had not reached an agreement. But now, that god falcon had returned. Had it surrendered? Gu Xingzhou recalled what the 100-eyed demonic crow had said before. That wind god falcon would definitely listen to them because the child of the wind god falcon had just been born. If the wind god falcon was disobedient, Gu Xingzhou's heart sank. With this wind god falcon, I can probably last for about 2 days. This my end. He recalled his life. I haven't done my duty yet, so I'm a little regretful. Really, I'm so unwilling. However, before he could finish sighing, the demons guarding him became angry because of the meaning contained in the wind god falcon's cry. They turned to the wind god falcon and roared. Gu Xingzhou was somewhat puzzled. A loud voice filled with undisguised joy rang out in the sky. Hello, teacher. My name is Jiruo. I'm from Cloud City Noel Middle School. We're here to save you. Gu Xingzhou was shocked. If it wasn't for the fact that he was in the process of sanctification and his body was as hard as metal, he would have turned his head. After Ondu Wind God Sun's bloodline advanced, her already extremely fast speed became even more terrifying. In just a few moments, he had flown from the sky-floating island to the mountain peak. Because of this, Jiruo and Liang Shixian were able to meet the patrolling martial artist. He was currently in the process of sanctification. The so-called sanctification was to condense one's martial arts skills and will. At the expense of one's life, one would solidify them and turn oneself into a martial arts sacred tablet. While suppressing demons, one would preserve all one's martial arts comprehension for future generations to observe and comprehend. After the sanctified martial artists were completely sanctified, they were called martial saints. Martial saints were not a title for a certain realm, but a title for sanctified martial artists. Jiruo's heart trembled when he saw the 30-meter-tall martial arts practitioner's golden body. This was the fourth realm of martial arts, the golden body realm. Jiruo couldn't help but feel happy when he thought that he could actually save such a high-level martial artist. Jiruo stood on the back of the wind god falcon and waved his arms happily. He shouted, "Hello, teacher. MV name is Jiruo. I'm from Cloud Civ Noel Middle School. We're here to save you." Croak dash, wind god falcon. How dare you? Aren't you afraid that after we deal with this martial artist, we'll kill your child? Chiu Xingqiao and Chiu Xingqiao were furious. Dabao, mama, this ugly toad wants to kill us. Chiu Xingqiao, chirp too. Ondu wind god falcon was also furious. You still dare to say that in front of me? Are you tired of living? He opened his mouth and inhaled. The air current rolled backward, and his body was covered in fine purple lightning. He flapped his wings, and purple lightning gathered. Wind and thunder combined to form a purple-green lightning hurricane as thick as a water tank, smashing down on the suppressed moon-swallowing toad. Croak. The moon-swallowing toad cried out in pain, and the moon behind it changed rapidly, as if it had been destroyed by the thunder and hurricane. It slowly left the back of the moon-swallowing toad that was full of cancer. Caw. Caw. What are you waiting for? Do it. The cloud-swallowing toad was unusually furious. My moon. My moon. It had spent dozens of years to borrow the spatial power of the Wanxiang mirror to construct the bright moon space on its back, but it was actually shattered by the wind god falcon with one strike. The other great fiendish demons were also enraged. They all used their own methods and charged towards Ondu wind god falcon. However, Ondu wind god sun did not panic at all. She flapped her wings again, and her huge body that was enough to cover the sky turned into a purple light. Her sharp wings swept across the place where the moon swallowing toad was pressed by the ancient star continent's golden body of martial arts. Dash. The back of the moon-swallowing toad was cut open on the spot. It finally broke free from the ancient star continent's suppression, but the intense pain was unbearable, causing it to roll on the ground. Ondu wind god sun placed Jiruo and her two children next to Gu Xingzhou's golden body of martial arts and called out, "Chirp dash, little Jiruo, watch the show here. Auntie will go and kill them." With just one strike, she roughly understood the difference between her and the big demons on the mountain peak, the difference between heaven and earth. Half-step 5-star was already the upper limit that Myriad Beast Mountain's mystic realm could withstand. Absolute combat strength ceiling. A 10,000 feet long tribulation centipede crawled out of the ground. Its ferocious mouth was dripping with venom, corroding even the air with a sizzling noise. Its target was the two treasures of the great jewel master. Buzz dash, wind god falcon. You will regret it. The tribulation centipede traveled underground, its head raised and smashed down. Dabao, Urbao, Jiruo, and the others could not avoid it. Screech. You're quite bold. Ondu wind god falcon let out an angry cry and turned around. Her strong bird claws grabbed the body of the myriad tribulation centipede that had just crawled out of the ground. The centipede's huge mouth had yet to bite down, but it could no longer bite down. Ondu wind god falcon grabbed the entire centipede and lifted it into the sky. With a peck of her beak, the centipede's head was bitten off, and it died on the spot. Bang. And wind god falcon threw the remains of the myriad tribulation centipede down like trash. She spat in disgust and said, "Chirp. Trash is trash, it tastes terrible." There were 16 demons on the mountain peak, and one of them died as soon as it came into contact with the wind god falcon. Jiruo came to the side of Gu Xingzhou's huge golden body and patted its calf, making a bang 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 sound. "Teacher, we're safe now," Jiruo said. "Auntie is very strong. Do you think we don't need to sanctify her anymore?" Upon hearing this, Gu Xingzhou pondered for a moment before his body began to gradually come alive. The golden body of his martial arts outside his body also slowly shrank. Under normal circumstances, the process of sanctification was irreversible. However, Gu Xingzhou had previously self-destruct 3 vitality star whirlpools. His golden body of martial arts was already lacking, and it could no longer be sanctified normally. His power would only continue to drain, and he would not be able to maintain the martial path golden body in the end. Naturally, he would not be able to sanctify it into the martial path sage tablet. The ancient star continent gradually returned to its original state. Because it had consumed too much energy, its face was abnormally pale. One of his arms had already become a bloody mess from the explosion of the Qi and Blood Star Whirlpool. After all, the so-called Qi and Blood Star Whirlpool was actually an opened ache appointment in the human body. Jiruo happily handed Gu Xingzhou the high-grade spirit fruit he had taken from the wind god falcon's nest, which he had wrapped in his clothes, and said, "Teacher, come, eat some fruit to recover." "Teacher, you must be exhausted, right?" "Child, you." Gu Xingzhou looked at Jiruo and Liang Shixian's dirty faces and tattered school uniforms, and he was completely dumbfounded. Now that they were so close, the disguise effect on Jiruo and Liang Shixian was naturally useless in front of this high-level martial artist. The familiar aura on Jiruo and Liang Shixian, these were clearly the children he had been looking for. He did not expect that he would be saved by someone else instead of doing anything. Come, come, come. Teacher, you're welcome. You've suffered such a serious injury. Looking at the high-grade spirit fruit that Jiruo had forced onto him, Gu Xingzhou's head was buzzing. His originally tragic emotions were no longer coherent. Chapter 54, Violent Windbane Slash. Chapter 54, Violent Windbane Slash. The long corpse of the disaster centipede divided the battlefield on the mountaintop. Because the corpse was too huge, Jiruo and Liang Shixian could not see the battle on the other side. However, he could make a simple judgment based on the constantly shaking ground, as well as the furious roars and painful hisses of the demons. Amongst them, the wind god Falcon's Anta chirped happily and excitedly. It was obvious that she had the upper hand in this battle. However, the cries of the other demons were still loud and vigorous. It seemed that the outcome would not be decided in a short period of time. The reason why the tribulation centipede died so hastily was mainly because of the racial restraint. Birds were the natural enemies of insects. Child, now is what's going on. Gu Xingzhou mumbled. He was already prepared to die, but he did not expect the situation to take such a drastic turn. Two examines who were participating in the martial examination were actually mingling with the ruler of the sky in the Myriad Beast Mountain mystic realm. Moreover, they looked very familiar with each other. Was there anything more ridiculous than this? Liang Shixian said, "Hello, teacher. My name is Liang Shixian, and his name is Jiruo. We are both students from grade 12 class 4 of Cloud City First High School. This matter is actually like this." He gave Gu Xingzhou a brief introduction of the situation. Gu Xingzhou was stunned as he listened. What did he mean by hiding among the tree demons and escaping with them? When he was roasting meat, he was accidentally discovered by the wind god Falcon, and he was captured to be a chef and nanny on the floating island. And that student Jiruo has an extremely high talent in languages, so the two of them were warmly received by Anta wind god Falcon. Gu Xingzhou sensed the terrifying 5-star demonic aura on the other side of the myriad tribulation centipede's corpse, and his head buzzed. No matter how good his language talent was, it was too ridiculous to pull in such a powerful foreign aid. Was this something that two high school students could do? Secret realms were small worlds with incomplete laws. There was an upper limit to their power. Otherwise, those demons would not have thought of invading the human world. They had the secret realm as their backing, and they were rich in resources. They also had a strong bloodline hierarchy system, which allowed them to grow quickly and live a very comfortable life. However, the upper limit of every mystic realm was there. Once one reached a certain stage, it would be very difficult to become stronger. Humans were weak all year round. This was also part of the reason. Warriors who were too strong could not enter, and those who could enter could not suppress the rulers of the mystic realm. Otherwise, if they could send high-level martial artists to take down a mystic realm, they could attack and retreat at will. Humans would not be so weak, the price was too great. Hence, it was a stalemate. Teacher, you've suffered such a serious injury. Eat more. These are all high-level spiritual fruits from Auntie's nest. Jiruo said cheerfully, we don't have anything to do now. Auntie just broke through, so she brought us here to look for trouble and save you. We'll just watch. Gu Xingzhou was heavily injured. Although Jiruo had entered the Qi Meridian, he was still too weak compared to those 4-star demons. There was no need to mention Liang Shixian. If they went over, they would only be a burden to Anta wind god Falcon. Gu Xingzhou took a deep breath. He ate a few spiritual fruits and felt that his lost blood and qi were gradually replenished. Although his injuries would not recover for a while, he still had the strength to fight. No matter what, he's here to help. We have to be grateful. Before he could finish, he suddenly stopped. De Bao and Er Bao had been flying in the air excitedly as they watched their mother beat up the demons on the mountain peak. Suddenly, their wings stopped flapping and they fell from the sky. At some point in time, large patches of black crow feathers had fallen from the sky. The chaotic and evil spiritual thoughts were affecting their minds. Liang Shixian, who was only a level 9 martial apprentice, was instantly hit. His expression was dull as he was dragged into a mental illusion. A 100-eyed devil crow Gu Xingzhou gritted his teeth. The 100-eyed demonic crow did not attack them with all its might, and the wind god Falcon was bearing most of the pressure alone. However, even if it was just a little bit, it was not something that Jiruo, who had just entered the Qi Meridian realm, and Gu Xingzhou, who was extremely tired and heavily injured, could withstand. They were all pulled into a mental illusion. Damn dog, the Cyclops roared. Kill those little fellows first. Anta wind god Falcon cried out angrily, chirp. Stall her. The demons changed their strategy and turned from offense to defense. They only wanted to restrain Anta wind god Falcon and no longer pursued killing. Even with onto Wind God Sun's heaven and earth rapid speed, she was still unable to break free from the restriction. Chirp dash, 1 If anything happens to my children and my friends, I'll take your lives. Onto Wind God Sun's fighting style became more and more aggressive. She almost gave up on defense. Wind and thunder surrounded her body, like a god who controlled wind and thunder. The beast realm hyena activated its innate ability and summoned the centipede through the corpse. A large number of I-star and 2-star canine demon beasts and demons were summoned. The beast realm hyena was a hybrid of demon and beast. Its innate ability could summon a large number of canine demon beasts and monsters that were far weaker than it. It could be said that a dog could form an army. This was also the origin of the two words beast realm in his title. As long as his mental power was not exhausted, the number of low-level canine demons and canine demons he could summon was endless. Jiruo was in a trance, feeling that he had suddenly arrived in a town that had been invaded by the flames of war. The eves were everywhere, and the flames of war were everywhere. The humans were crying and running away, but they had already been defeated. Meanwhile, countless demons were killing the humans. The scene was extremely bloody. Jiruo didn't know that he had been pulled into an illusion. He had instantly assumed his new identity and fled with the main group. However, before he could run for long, a black cat descended from the sky and said anxiously, "Meow, master, wake up. So many dogs." A dog. Jiruo was stunned, and the tragic scene in front of him shattered. He saw a big black dog with a huge, stinous mouth biting at him. Rosie meowed in fear as she pounced on the big dog. "Meow, meow, meow, stinky dog, get lost. Don't bite master. Where did all these dogs come from?" Jiruo gasped. When he turned around, he saw Yang Shixian's face filled with fear, Gu Xing's expression filled with anger, and De Bao and Er Bao's stunned expressions. They were standing rooted to the spot, as if they did not know anything about this. Without hesitation, Jiruo raised his hand and roared, "My turn. Draw a card." The purple and green feathers were summoned by Jiruo. Facing the menacing demon dog tide, Jiruo stepped on the breeze. His figure was like a ghost as he moved through the dog tide, elegant and agile. Steel Flash kept swinging his sword in a circle, causing a lot of damage to the dog tide. He didn't run too far away. Instead, he kept moving around Gu Xingzhou and the others, helping them fend off the dog tide. With the support of the energy vein, layer after layer of tornado slash was added to the purple and green feathers, forming a violent gale. Accumulate. Accumulate power. Jiruo almost couldn't control himself, even with his Chi Meridian realm strength. The whirlwind around the pair of feathers seemed to want to blow the purple and green feathers away from his hands. It was time. Spinning. Slash. A hurricane wrapped in purple lightning exploded from Jiruo's body, blowing dozens of dog demons into the air. Jiruo seized the opportunity and imagined dozens of white lines. He clapped his palms and the purple and green feathers merged into one. Jiruo circulated his full concentration breath wind to the extreme. Borrowing the power of the wind, he leaped high into the air and controlled the wind and thunder to suppress the dog demons in the air. Violent wind, breathless slash. Chapter 55, Look, isn't teacher's movement technique nice? 1. Chapter 55, Look, isn't teacher's movement technique nice? 1. Great Xia's Department of Education. It's been 3 days. Secretary Gu has been missing for 3 days. The department was already in a mess. The education department was not an independent department. Together with the other departments, they were actually under the jurisdiction of a higher-level administrative department. However, Gu Xingzhou, who was the highest authority in the education department, had been missing for more than 72 hours. The other effects were secondary. The main thing was that the highest leader of a division had been missing for more than 3 days. Due to the restrictions of the Mystic Realm's upper limit, martial artists who were too strong could not enter the Myriad Beast Mountain. Gu Xingzhou, who was at the Aureate Body Realm, was already considered an absolute expert in this rescue operation. In the first few days, Gu Xingzhou had relied on his powerful strength to save many students and patrolling martial artists. However, there was no more news after that. Shouldn't we include the secretary as a rescue target as well? Jiruo's gale breathing slash was different from the original version. Because it wasn't a game, Jiruo was able to keep accumulating wind until his physical body reached its limit. When he released the wind he had accumulated, he could create a man-made hurricane. Jiruo, on the other hand, was like a child of the wind. As the purple and green feathers flapped, the wind seemed to have become an extension of the feather blades. As they slashed, the huge wind blades covered an area of 10 meters. The strong wind suppressed the dog demons and dog demons that were blown away in the air. The huge wind blades slashed continuously. The strong wind pressure formed a wind pressure field within a radius of 10 meters with Jiruo as the center. The demons outside could not enter, and the demons inside could not leave. Meow, master is so awesome. Luo Qian was so excited that she was yelling and yelling. The wind was blowing on her head, and her face was deformed. However, she still couldn't hide her excitement. Jiruo was also satisfied. When Happy Wind Man opened the car, there were dozens of white lines. If this was in the game, even if he were to brag about it with his teammates, it wouldn't be so much. Moreover, the consumption was not particularly high. The purple and green feathers had a dual elemental affinity, allowing Jiruo to deal higher damage with less stamina consumption. Not only that, but the purple and green feathers were also exceptionally sharp. The bodies of the demons that were suppressed in the air were like paper in front of the feathers. A moment later, the wind died down. Jiruo had killed nearly 100 demons with a single move. However, compared to the Beast Realm hyenas, it was still not enough. The Beast Realm hyena summoning ability was too strong. It seemed like there was an endless stream of canine demons. But it didn't matter. Let's see who can outlast who. Jiruo took out a piece of roasted meat and stuffed it into his mouth. He chewed it in big mouthfuls and used the forward stepping slash again. He circled the demon beasts with an E and then turned it big. This was repeated, and the demon beasts' corpses gradually piled up and were blown away by the strong wind. Jiruo walked through the demons happily, occasionally eating a piece of roasted meat or a spiritual fruit, relaxed and carefree. With high-level equipment and a large number of minions, could Jiruo lose? That was impossible. Of course, he was also puzzled as to why others were controlled but he wasn't. However, when he saw Luo Qian's innate talent change from endurance +++1 to illusion break, Jiruo understood everything. A cat that could heal itself and add skills was really not bad. Gu Xingzhou knew very well that he was once again controlled by the 100-eyed devil crow's mental illusion. However, he had already been seriously injured after exploding 3 vitality star whirlpools earlier. Moreover, he had forcefully suppressed the moon-swallowing toad for a few days and was constantly affected by the cold and scorching sun. He was already exhausted. Therefore, even if he knew that he was currently under the control of the illusion, he was unable to break free. I can't do nothing, those children are in danger. In the illusion, Gu Xingzhou looked at the tragic scene constructed by the 100-eyed demon crow, and his mood was unusually heavy. He knew that it was fake, but he couldn't help but overthink it. This was because the protagonists of this illusion were Liang Shixian and Ji Ruo. The wind god Falcon had been defeated in the illusion, and the demons were torturing and eating the 2 children. Gu Xingzhou wanted to self-detonate his star jade once again to forcefully break the illusion. However, he did not know what was going on around him. The power of the self-destructing star whirlpool was too great. He was worried that he would act rashly and hurt the 2 children. We can't just do nothing. After hesitating for a moment, Gu Xingzhou decided to explode. Boom. Another vitality star whirlpool exploded. Gu Xingzhou endured the pain and sent the vast vitality force he had obtained from the explosion of the vitality star whirlpool into the ground. With his strong willpower, he controlled it to explode from 10 meters away. Thus, the illusion shattered. Gu Xingzhou was about to fight, but when he opened his eyes, he was stunned. Hasak. Solo, give it to me. Strange words of unknown meaning rang out continuously, and the wind blew his clothes and hair, making them flutter. Gu Xingzhou narrowed his eyes in the wind. He saw Jiruo wielding the purple feather sword as he moved through the beasts, stirring up the wind. The smile on his face was unusually sincere and pure. Jiruo didn't know that Gu Xingzhou had woken up. He slashed out another hurricane and suddenly found that the surrounding ground was surging with blood chi for some reason. The blood chi was blown away by the strong wind and spread out. The dense purple lightning connected into one area. The demons screamed one after another. It was contaminated by the martial artist's blood chi, and their skin and flesh disintegrated. There's still attribute damage. Not bad. Ha 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 ha. Jiruo laughed. Gu Xingzhou was shocked. Chi Meridian Realm, how can he be so strong? He looked at the demonic corpses beside them and knew that Jiruo must have killed those demons, but how could he kill so many? Didn't this child consume anything? Then, he saw Jiruo take out a high-level spiritual fruit and nibble on it while he was traveling. He looked so relaxed that he didn't look like he was killing demons at all. Instead, he looked like he was taking a walk after dinner. Gu Xingzhou suddenly had a strange feeling. It was as if it was the same whether he was in this battle or not. He had clearly planned to find these 2 children and save them from the beginning. What went wrong? Gu Xingzhou fell into deep thought. Amidst the shouts with strange accents, Gu Xingzhou felt that the scene was getting stranger and stranger. He could not tell what was strange, but it was strange. Child, be careful. Gu Xingzhou, who was still doubting his life, suddenly saw the black crow feathers floating in the sky suddenly stand up. They seemed to have finally realized something and turned into black arrows, flying towards Jiruo. Jiruo turned around and said in surprise. Teacher, you're awake. Gu Xingzhou frowned. He thought to himself that this was not good. Although this child was strong, he was still too young. How could he be distracted in such a situation? Gu Xingzhou didn't have time to think, he used the startling swan escape technique, causing his wounds to bleed, trying to push Jiruo away. Flash. However, Jiruo didn't even turn his head. He swung the purple and green feather sword in his hand towards the ground, unleashing all the wind accumulated on the feather sword, forming a huge wind wall. I'm facing the wind. The densely packed black feathers were blocked by the wind wall, and their power was greatly reduced. However, they still managed to penetrate through the wind wall. Jiruo didn't mind. He separated his palms and the purple and green feather sword turned into two feathers again. Jiruo separated his palms and held it with his back facing the sky full of feathers. He used his sword skill. Arrow breaking form. Ding ding dang dang. Gu Xingzhou stopped after running 2 steps. Firstly, his wound was too painful. Secondly, Jiruo's methods were too shocking to him. Was this really something that a Chi Meridian Realm martial artist could do? Jiruo blocked the black crow feathers and asked with a smile, Teacher, what did you just say? The wind is too strong, I can't hear it clearly. Gu Xingzhou looked at Jiruo, who was unusually relaxed. The graceful flowing light that the graceful escape had dragged out was still swaying behind him, and had yet to completely dissipate. He pondered for a moment, then ran 2 more steps with a toothache and said, Child, look. Is the teacher's movement technique good? Chapter 56, Chapter 56, Don't worry, teacher called for help. Chapter 56, Don't worry, teacher called for help. The moon that had been freed from its restraint slowly rose into the sky, dyeing the midnight sky silver. The sun in Myriad Beast Mountain was not a star, but a manifestation of the extreme yang law. It was the weakest at night. At this moment, the laws of extreme yang had been refined into its huge eye by the Cyclops giant in an unknown way. The light was suppressed by the bright moon that had broken free from its restraints. The bright moon hung high in the sky. Countless black crow feathers hid their tracks in the night sky, rendering endless killing intent. However, the crow feathers were first weakened by Jiruo's wind wall, and then blocked by the purple and green twin feathers, breaking arrow form. Although the huge force made his palms numb, it wasn't unbearable. Teacher, you're seriously injured. It's better for you to rest more. Don't worry, I'm here. Jiruo said cheerfully. His meridians were different from those of ordinary warriors. With the 2 innate talents of more is good, big is strong, even if Jiruo had just entered the meridian's boundary, he was still several times stronger than those of the same level. Moreover, he had a purple specialized weapon in his hand, an exclusive weapon that could increase the power of sword skills. Looking at Jiruo's exquisite sword skill, Gu Xingzhou could not help but ask, Child, this sword technique is? It was hard to imagine that this was used by an examinee participating in the martial examination. Furthermore, as the secretary of the education department, Gu Xingzhou was very clear that the strongest candidate in this martial examination was only a grade 8 martial apprentice. There was definitely no one in the Chi Meridian realm. Obviously, Jiruo had broken through during the combat examination. I created it myself. What do you think, teacher? Handsome, right? Jiruo smiled. Handsome. Gu Xingzhou was very gratified. How long had it been since he had seen such an outstanding junior? Feeling the pure happiness from Jiruo, Gu Xingzhou could not help but relax. Teacher, you should rest first. I see that your injuries are quite serious. Also, my class monitor seems to be still under control. Help me keep an eye on them. With the sword in hand, Jiruo's figure was graceful and agile. Don't worry about me. I'm a master of both sword and saber. What a good saber and sword duality. Then I won't hold you back. Gu Xingzhou smiled. He sat down cross-legged and began to refine the energy of the spirit fruit he had just eaten, circulating his cultivation to heal his injuries. Not only that, but he also urged his blood essence, causing his blood essence power to begin to move rhythmically at a strange frequency, as if he was transmitting a message to the outside world. Gu Xingzhou knew very well that as the secretary of the education department, he had been missing for such a long time. The department would definitely send more people to look for him. Humans had always had the means to contact other martial artists when their basic communication facilities were completely destroyed. It was just that Gu Xingzhou was not sure if he could still survive and did not want to be a burden to others, so he had not used any secret techniques to transmit messages. Now, it seemed that they were no longer in danger. They could call for reinforcements. As Gu Xingzhou recuperated, he used a secret technique to urge his chi and blood power to produce a strange rhythm that slowly seeped into the ground below him and merged into the earth vein of Myriad Beast Mountain. If a warrior used a secret technique to sense, he would be able to discover the information of the warrior hidden in the myriad beast mountain's earth vein energy and come to help. A moment later, Gu Xingzhou, who had sensed that the information he had sent out had been received by a certain cultivator, smiled and said, "Child, I'll have to trouble you a little longer. I've called for reinforcements, you can't just rely on that auntie of yours." Ji Ruo nodded. "All right, teacher. If you need anything, you can tell me. Auntie. Wind God Falcon has given us a lot of food." Halfway up the mountain, a search and rescue team was delighted. "I received news from the secretary. He's safe now. Let's pass the message to our other colleagues as soon as possible and organize our men to head to the top of the mountain." This search and rescue team was made up of martial artists of the Third Realm. They were all martial artists who had opened up the Vitality Star Whirlpool. They were already considered the elites of the education department. After all, the education department was not a department that specialized in combat. It was not that Great Xia could not bring out more martial artists. It was just that other than the martial artists guarding the various secret realms, the martial artists at the border could not leave their posts at will. Originally, the ancient Star Continent was not the only Oriate Body Realm martial artist who had come to the Myriad Beast Mountain. However, a large-scale change had occurred in the earth vein of the Myriad Beast Mountain's mystic realm, causing the space of the mystic realm to become chaotic. The other Oriate Body Realm martial artists could not enter for a short period of time. "Leave a message and inform our other colleagues. Let's hurry." Before he could finish speaking, the earth suddenly shook. This time, it was different from the previous changes in the earth vein. It was just an earthquake. "Be careful to hide." Sensing the strong demonic aura that suddenly surged not far away, the leader of the rescue team was shocked and quickly called his teammates to hide. They were currently halfway up the mountain. Although the Myriad Beast Mountain Mystic Realm's upper limit was below 5-star, there were still many 3-star and 4-star fiendish demons at the halfway point. Not all 4-star fiendish demons lived on the mountaintop. The Mystic Realm was extremely large, and there were quite a number of 4-star fiendish demons. It was just that there were more of them than the other demons. 16 on one side and 1 or 2 on the other. The numbers didn't match. At this moment, the chaos at the top of the mountain had made those high-level demons go to fight for territory. They had no intention of going to the top of the mountain to join in the fun. What for? Was he looking for death? A moment later, the rescue team saw an extremely shocking scene. The dense group of tree demons suddenly moved towards the top of the mountain. The leader was a peak 4-star sacred mountain tree. Its trunk alone was 100 meters thick. The roots hidden under the ground were so terrifying that they could even disturb the earth veins in this area. However, as a plant-type demon, the sacred mountain wood was considered a very gentle type among the 4-star demons. Under normal circumstances, they would not leave their territory for hundreds of years. They were too lazy to move, and they would not take the initiative to attack the passing demons. Tree demons were all gentle, but for some reason, at this moment, these tree demons seemed to be in a state of agitation. They ran wildly towards the top of the mountain, and no one knew what they were going to do. The leader of the tree demons said, "Shasha, those demons are really bullying the trees. This time, I can't tolerate it no matter what." "Shasha, yes. No matter what, I can't tolerate it." The sacred mountain tree used its huge roots to awaken the tree demons it encountered along the way. The tree crown that was enough to cover the sky shook. "Rustle, rustle, rustle, they're really a divine tree that can transform fertilizer? Don't lie to me." "Shasha, don't worry, ancestor, why would we lie to you? We personally experienced the wonders of the 2 divine tree brothers. The fertilizer conversion rate is too high." "Shasha dash, alright, then I will accompany you to the top of the mountain." If this was true, then it would be the freedom of fertilizer. What kind of tree could resist this temptation? The sacred mountain tree used its roots to sense the entire forest and discovered the rescue team immediately. Different from ordinary tree demons, the sacred mountain wood could be seen. On its thick trunk, the bark was twisted into a rather abstract face. It glanced at the rescue team indifferently. He didn't plan to care. It did not have any actual conflict with humans. On the contrary, during the martial examination every year, it would quietly spread its roots to the foot of the mountain. Those human babies ate fast and pooped fast. Just growing 2 ordinary spiritual fruits would make them happy for a long time. It wasn't really good treatment, it was just taking what they needed. The group of tree demons left in a mighty manner. The sacred mountain tree was worried that it would not have enough tree hands. On the way, other than awakening the other tree demons, it also continuously used its ability to absorb the energy of the earth vein to catalyze the ordinary trees. It allowed those trees to pass through the long spirit awakening stage and directly become spirits. Therefore, the rescue team members could only watch as the tree demons uprooted all the plants in their path, even the moss was taken away. The mountainside became bare at a speed visible to the naked eye. One of the team members said in a daze, "Captain, Are we still hiding? The captain was a little annoyed. Let's go and meet up with the secretary. He was originally hiding in a bush, but just now, that bush ran away. P.S. Rosie's doujinshi pictures are really nice. Chapter 57, Baby Rosie. Chapter 57, Baby Rosie. At the top of the mountain. Chirp, little Jiruo is really not bad. Auntie can't fall behind. Ondu Wind God's son felt that the situation was under control and finally relaxed. To be honest, she was worried that her child would be killed by the low-level canine demon beast summoned by the beast realm hyena. After all, there were too many of those stinky dogs. Not to mention that the 100-eyed demon crow had been casting a mental illusion. It had been a long time since the wind god falcon had heard her child's cry. If it wasn't for the fact that she could still sense that Debao and Erbao's vital signs were still normal, she would have rushed back without caring about anything else. Auntie, don't worry, I'm here. Jiruo shouted. Luo Qian lay on top of Jiruo's head and meowed excitedly. She didn't know if it was because Jiruo was really powerful or something else. Gu Xingzhou was doing his best to heal his injuries and recover his strength as soon as possible. Liang Shixian and Qiu Xingqiao were still being controlled by the illusion. Unlike Liang Shixian's terrified face, Qiu Xingqiao looked very happy. Who knew what these two little fellows who had just been born had encountered in the illusion? Croak. The moon-swallowing toad roared angrily. It had finally regained control of the slowly rising moon after being in a stalemate for a long time. Caw. Don't hold back. Kill this damn bird and eat her. We can all advance. As it spoke, the moon-swallowing toad opened its mouth and spat out a thick earthen yellow meat pillar. The meat pillar looked like the torso of some kind of creature. Its diameter alone was more than 10 meters. The surface of its body looked abnormally slippery. Even though it had been separated from its original body for an unknown period of time, it was still slowly squirming as if it had not died. The other demons also made up their minds and each took out a piece of meat. Ondu Wind God Falcon flew into the sky in shock. Chirp. Dragon. You still have it? She thought that the earthworm's corpse had already been eaten by these guys. After all, it had been some time since the earth-overturning dragon had died. When demons ate powerful creatures, their strength would increase, but it would not be as obvious as a demon. Demons evolved, while demons advanced. Therefore, after her bloodline had advanced, the Wind God Falcon did not take these guys seriously at all. She thought that these guys had already eaten the earthworm and obtained an advancement. But unexpectedly, he hadn't eaten yet. Caw. You still want to run? Come down. Dozens of pieces of the earth-turning dragon's body were put together by them. The broken body healed quickly in a very short time and turned back into a huge creature. It twisted its body unconsciously on the ground. This earth-turning dragon had no facial features and looked like a huge earthworm. After its body healed, it expanded rapidly. A visible earth and yellow earth vein energy surged out from the ground and entered the body of the earth-turning dragon. The earth-overturning dragon's body grew bigger and bigger. In an instant, it surrounded the entire mountain peak. The huge body that still had extremely strong activity seemed to be missing something important. It only twisted its body unconsciously and stirred the earth vein below it. Good fellow. Jiruo exclaimed. And you're still here to do a circle exercise. Seeing that the situation wasn't looking good, the wind god Falcon Ondu rode on the wind and thunder, planning to take Jiruo and the others with her. Caw. Don't even think about running. Earth vein, heavy. The 15 4-star demons worked together to activate the earth-overturning dragon's corpse that was still alive, connecting it to the earth veins of the entire myriad beast mountain. The gravity on the mountain peak instantly increased by dozens of times, and it was still increasing rapidly. Gu Xingzhou's injuries had yet to recover, and he couldn't help but spit out another mouthful of blood. Liang Shixian and Debao and Erbao instantly woke up. They were pressed to the ground by the terrifying gravity and screamed repeatedly. Ondu Wind God's son only felt her body sink, and the original world suddenly fell at an extremely fast speed. It was extremely difficult to even flap her wings. The larger the body, the more intense the influence in this sudden change in gravity. Not only Ondu Wind God Falcon, but even the demons were the same. They could not withstand the terrifying gravity. The reason why they did not use this method at the beginning was that they themselves could not avoid the influence of the gravity field. But in the end, the Wind God Falcon's speed advantage was gone. In terms of endurance, to be honest, the Wind God Falcon might not be able to withstand more beatings than those demons. Liang Shixian was sprawled on the ground. He could feel every inch of his skin, muscles, and bones screaming in pain. He couldn't even think. It was as if his thoughts were being crushed by the terrifying gravity. He could only subconsciously activate the iron skin technique as if he wanted to reduce the damage he received. As for Jiruo, to be honest, Jiruo didn't feel anything. With Rosie on top of his head, he looked at the dense pack of canine demons in front of him with a dumbfounded expression. All of a sudden, they were lying on the ground in front of him, screaming and wailing. He did not know what had happened. No one noticed that Rosie's black fur was emitting a faint earthen yellow glow under the night sky. At this moment, the entire mountain peak was affected by the surging earth vein energy. There was an earthen yellow light everywhere, and the light on Luo Qian's body was not eye-catching. Meow dash, Master, what happened to them? Why are you all lying down? Little Rosie asked in confusion. Jiruo lifted Luo Qian off his head and stared at her seriously. Rosie was a little confused. It's fine. Jiruo took a deep breath. As expected, Rosie washed herself again. That illusion-breaking talent had unknowingly been washed into anti-gravity. He had picked up a treasure. What kind of demon was this? His talent was too ridiculous. Caw. Damned bird, now that your speed is gone, let's see how you can still be arrogant. The moon-swallowing toad lay on the ground, its huge body slowly moving toward the wind god falcon. The wound on its back was still bleeding, but it did not care. Croak croak. After eating you, we can advance further. At that time, we can even go to a higher level secret realm and pursue greater power. Even the human world was not impossible to go to. Gwigwigwigwo. The moon-swallowing toad laughed wildly and raised its head to spit out an extremely cold breath. The extremely cold breath collided with the bright moon and was reflected by the bright moon. More and more intense extremely cold breath rolled back, causing the entire mountain top to fall with goose feathers and snow, turning into an extremely cold domain. Onto Wind God Sun's handsome body was covered in frost, and her face finally revealed a painful expression. The other 13 demons slowly moved toward Onto Wind God Sunday. They were not as fast as the Wind God Falcon, and now that everyone had slowed down, they were naturally more used to it. 13 demons, including the moon-swallowing toad, made a total of 14. Apart from the already dead centipede, there was also one missing. The 100-eyed demon crow had disappeared. Of course, he didn't know that there was a calamity centipede's corpse in the middle of the battlefield between him and the wind god falcon. He only knew that it was snowing for no reason at the top of the mountain. It was very cold. Jiruo put Luo Qian back on his head. She was shivering from the cold. The blood in her body was surging, and her entire body was steaming. A loud bang came from behind. Jiruo turned around in surprise, only to see Gu Xingzhou's face as pale as a sheet of paper. He kept spitting out large mouthfuls of blood as he detonated yet another Vitality Star Jade. Gu Xingzhou used the Qi and Blood Star Whirlpool to form a Martial Dao Golden Body Phantom, which covered a 10-meter radius around him to resist the terrifying gravity for Jiruo and the others. Child cough, cough, cough. Children, come over here. I'll help you puff. Up until now, Gu Xingzhou had already self-detonated 5 Vitality Star Whirlpools. He was already extremely weak. Liang Shixian's breathing gradually became smoother, but Gu Xingzhou's martial arts Golden Body Phantom could withstand the gravitational field, but it could not help others withstand the cold. It was so cold that he could not help but hug De Bao and Er Bao, shivering to keep warm. Jiruo thought for a moment and walked to them. Teacher, are you guys cold? As he spoke, Jiruo took out a bunch of straight wooden sticks from the myriad phenomenon mirror and placed them in front of Gu Xingzhou and the others. Gu Xingzhou's eyelids trembled. Spatial equipment. This little fellow's gains in this martial examination were too great. Jiruo activated his iron palm, which was at the level of perfection, and his palms were burning with flames. He endured the pain and set the wooden sticks on fire. Although they were not particularly precious wood, they were especially straight. Teacher, you guys stay here and warm yourselves. I'm a little worried about Onto Wind God Falcon. I'll go and take a look. Child, it's dangerous over there. Before Gu Xingzhou could finish, Jiruo interrupted him. Teacher, Onto Wind God Falcon is here to help us. This Gu Xingzhou opened his mouth and sighed. Child, you did the right thing. Remember, a martial artist has to have a clear conscience. You be careful. Yes, yes. Jiruo nodded and turned to leave with Luo Qian. Gu Xingzhou had originally thought that Jiruo was just joking. After all, with Jiruo's Qi Pulse realm strength, he probably wouldn't be able to move after leaving the range of his golden body of martial arts. However, it was good that he had such intentions. However, before Gu Xingzhou could even finish sighing, Jiruo hopped away from the golden body of martial arts with the black cat on his head. He stabbed the purple and green feathers in his hands, killing the canine demons one by one. Little girl, wake up early in the morning, pull up your pants, and go to the toilet. There's someone in the toilet. I have no choice but to poop on my pants. Meow 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 meow. Liang Shixian was speechless. Gu Xingzhou was speechless. Looking at Jiruo's back as he hopped away, listening to Jiruo's cheerful nursery rhymes and Luo Qian's unmusical harmony, the two of them fell silent. You are Liang Shixian, right? Student Liang Shixian, Student Ruo, He has always been so. Are you happy? Liang Shixian looked exhausted. To think that you can say the word happy. Chapter 58, Chapter 58, the big yellow dog at the village head can't even take one strike from me. 1. Chapter 58, the big yellow dog at the village head can't even take one strike from me. 1. Although Gu Xingzhou was the secretary of the Department of Education, Ji Ruo and Liang Shixian did not recognize him. Some people might think that it was a little unreasonable for two good students who were at the top of their grade not to know the Secretary of Education. But thinking about it carefully, what kind of student would have the time to find out what the Director of Education looked like? If Gu Xingzhou had told them his name, Ji Ruo and Liang Shixian might have found it familiar. But now, they didn't know his name and had never seen the Secretary of Education before. It would be strange if they could recognize him. Now, all the canine demons were pressed to the ground by the gravitational field, unable to move. Ji Ruo held the purple and green feathers in his hands and stabbed one after another every 2 steps, killing these canine demons one after another. Meow meow, master, aren't you going to keep these? It can be eaten. The dog-type demonic creatures were slightly better. The dog-type demonic creatures had strong bodies and rich blood and qi. Eating them was beneficial. Little Luo Jian could not help but drool. She was still young and did not understand many things, but she could still do simple calculations. She knew very well how many ingredients she had stored in the Wanxiang mirror, a huge pile. But Ji Ruo had eaten quite a lot so far. He even shared it with others. Rosie's heart ached. He couldn't just eat it, he had to save more. Ji Ruo was stunned for a moment. After thinking for a while, Ji Ruo made a copy of the Omnizo mirror for little Luo Jian through the card collection manual. Strictly speaking, it was not a copy. It could only be considered a projection. The projection could be touched and felt real. It could also use the function of the Omnizo mirror normally. However, the appearance had been modified by Ji Ruo and it had become an ordinary round mirror. After all, it was little Rosie's thing. He could not refuse to let her use it, right? In the past, Luo Jian might have lost the Omnizo mirror, but now that the Omnizo mirror had been recorded in the card collection book by Ji Ruo, there was no possibility of losing it. And Luo Jian could still use all the functions of the Omnizo mirror normally. Overall, Luo Jian had profited. Meow. Luo Jian was surprised. Master, you really gave it back to me. Thank you, Master. How did my baby become like this? But it can still be used. She fiddled with the newly acquired Omnizo mirror, dividing mirror, and loved it dearly. The original myriad mirror was made up of a large number of diamond-shaped fragments of different sizes. It seemed to reflect countless worlds and looked quite awesome. However, the most basic function of the mirror, the reflection, could not be realized. Now that the mirror was smooth, Rosie was even happier. She couldn't understand what those strange images meant. Ji Ruo, Luo Jian, I'll kill one and you'll take one. When the time comes, Master will bring you to Great Xia to eat and drink. Rosie waved her little paws excitedly. Meow meow the coriander. Drink chili water. Was this how it was supposed to be understood? Rosie moved quickly. These were her future rations. As a demon, Rosie had a wide range of recipes. However, after collecting for a while, Ji Ruo found that Luo Jian only collected the corpses of the dog demons and not the corpses of the canine demons. He was a little puzzled. Although eating a demon might cause mental problems for the consumer, Rosie was a demon. Judging from her performance of constantly refreshing her points and replenishing her talent during this period of time, this little fellow was definitely not some inferior mixed blood. She should have no problem eating monsters, right? Rosie, why don't you accept these monsters? What a waste. Ji Ruo said. He couldn't eat demons, but he could sell some of the materials on these guys. Meow, meow, Rosie said. Master, you don't know, but demons taste terrible. I don't like to eat them. As soon as he said that, a canine monster at Ji Ruo's feet couldn't stand it anymore. It endured the pain and barked, woof woof woof. Who are you? Looking down on. Who doesn't taste good? Come, come. Try me. It turned out that the monsters written in the teaching materials were stupid. It was actually true. But thinking about it, Rosie seemed to have done something similar before. Was this something worth showing off about? Why did all these random things have to be engraved into the DNA? Luo Jian was frightened by the demons barking. She laid on Ji Ruo's head and said, Meow is fierce, I'm. The master will help you to get back. The demonic creature lay on the ground, baring its teeth. It did not have the slightest fear of facing death and kept barking. The surrounding canine monsters were also infected and began to curse Ji Ruo and Luo Jian. There was only one meaning to the tossing and turning of the dish. I'm delicious. When Ji Ruo saw this, he put away the purple and green feathers. Pretty fierce, huh? He took out a long wooden stick from the Omnizo mirror, These were all taken from the nest of the wind god falcon. It was the material for the wind god falcon to build a nest. It wasn't anything valuable, so it didn't matter if Jiruo took it. Jiruo raised the wooden stick, and his blood essence power climbed onto it, smashing it down fiercely. The demonic creature cried out in pain, and even its tears fell from Jiruo's stick. A martial artist's lifeblood power was extremely lethal to magical beasts. This was also the reason why humans gradually abandoned firearms. Firearms were not completely abandoned. However, compared to hidden weapons, bullets from firearms could not add to a martial artist's vitality. Weapons like nuclear weapons could effectively kill magical beasts, but they could also cause magical beasts to mutate and evolve under the high temperature and radiation of the nuclear explosion. There was once a similar case where humans used nuclear weapons to create a new race for the demons. Of course, even with the addition of blood essence power, the stick in Jiruo's hand was just an ordinary wooden stick. Even with the support of the gravitational field, it was impossible to smash the monster to tears. The main reason why this monster was crying was because. Congratulations to the host for successfully triggering the martial arts achievement. The big yellow dog at the village head is not my match. Obtained title, Dog's Bane. Canine Bane. When using a cudgel-type weapon to attack canines, the attack will ignore 60% of defense and resistance, causing true pain, non-damage. Acquired martial skill, dog beating stick technique, beginner's glimpse, proficiency O, can be improved by attacking bad dogs. Remark, dogs are good friends of humans, but some dogs have really bad personalities. Jiruo was delighted. The title Dog's Bane could cause true pain to all canine creatures that ignored 60% of their defense and resistance. Simply put, it was very painful to fight, but the actual damage might not be much. It was easy to understand why the monster was beaten to tears. It really hurt. The dog beating stick technique had instantly gained an initial understanding of the technique, and Jiruo had instantly grasped a martial technique. The blood essence in his body surged into the wooden stick in his hand in a strange way. The wooden stick was infected by blood essence, and blood patterns appeared on both ends of the stick, making it even harder. Of course, it was mainly because he was handsome. Ignoring the wailing demonic creature, Jiruo smashed his rod down again. Are you angry at my cat? The surrounding demons were confused and began to curse this demon. Woof woof. Useless thing. Woof. Wasn't it just being hit twice? How dare you cry? Bah. Compared to these demons, the dog demon's reactions were not as intense. They would be eaten. Rosie did not look down on them. Chapter 59, Chapter 59, Sound Combo, 1. Chapter 59, Sound Combo, 1. Perhaps it was because of the gravitational field, the dog tide was no longer endless. Hundreds of canine demons lay on the ground, and the scene was shocking. But as Jiruo activated his new achievement, the scene became more and more shocking. In order to increase his proficiency, he had beaten all the canine demons to tears with a stick. They could not move or run, so they could only lie on the ground and cry. It was a pity that every time a canine demon cried, it seemed to only calculate its proficiency once. If he continued to fight later, it might be because those demons kept crying and did not stop. Later on, their proficiency did not increase. Useless. Jiruo said disdainfully. Then, he summoned his purple and green feathers and began to poke. The dog demon's corpse was collected by Luo Qian and stored in the Omni-Zo mirror's time-freeze preservation. The dog-type monsters were casually discarded, but this time, no monster said anything more. This child really hurt when he hit a dog. Gu Xingzhou was heavily injured and his senses were greatly weakened. He could not clearly understand the situation here. He could only see Jiruo holding a stick and beating dogs everywhere. Then, the demons were beaten until they cried. He was completely mesmerized. How could he be beaten to tears by a demon? Gu Xingzhou had practiced martial arts for so many years, but this was the first time he had seen such a thing. However, Jiruo seemed to be using a staff technique now. It looked equally exquisite and unusual, and the ancient star continent had never seen it before. He thought to himself, could it be that Jiruo created it himself? This talent was too ridiculous. Jiruo massacred the demons while letting Luo Shi collect the corpses. The corpses of the dog demons would always disappear suddenly. The entire process was not hidden from Gu Xingzhou and Liang Shixian. Gu Xingzhou was surprised by the capacity of the spatial equipment that Jiruo had obtained, but he also felt that Jiruo's actions were somewhat inappropriate. Liang Shixian, do you know that Jiruo has a space teleportation equipment? Gu Xingzhou asked after some thought. What? I don't know. It should be the wind god Falcon's aunt who gave it to him. Jiruo has a good relationship with An Defengshen Falcon, Liang Shixian said carefully. He thought that Gu Xingzhou had some thoughts about Jiruo's treasure. Did the wind god Falcon give it to him? Gu Xingzhou said solemnly. Student Liang Shixian, you must remember that when you return, you must not expose the fact that student Jiruo possesses a spatial storage equipment. Otherwise, with your current strength, it is very likely that you will cause some trouble for student Jiruo. Liang Shixian was relieved when he heard that. He scratched his head and said in embarrassment, then I definitely won't say anything. I'm sorry, teacher. I thought you had some thoughts about Jiruo's things. Why should I have any ideas? Gu Xingzhou was stunned. Everything in the mystic realm belongs to the individual legally. Child, you exchanged your lives for this. Why would I have any thoughts? He looked at Jiruo and said, from the looks of it, Jiruo's spatial equipment seems to have a large capacity. He couldn't expose it, or it would be easy for some people to have improper thoughts. At this moment, Jiruo had finished slaughtering all the demons and devils. He came to the remains of the centipede and looked up. Gu Xingzhou stared at Jiruo closely. After a while, he saw that Jiruo did not do anything and directly climbed onto the corpse of the centipede. He could not help but heave a sigh of relief. Fortunately, the capacity isn't ridiculously large. Gu Xingzhou would not be jealous if an outstanding junior obtained a powerful treasure. After all, that was something that the child had exchanged for with his life. However, just because he wasn't jealous didn't mean that others weren't. The most difficult thing to grasp in this world was the human heart. He could not guarantee that others would not be tempted after knowing that Jiruo had such a powerful spatial equipment. The corpse of the disaster centipede was too huge. If Jiruo's spatial equipment could even store this, then he had to think about how to help Jiruo keep the secret. Jiruo stood beside the corpse of the centipede and looked up. The peak 4-star tribulation centipede was ridiculously huge. It was 3,000 meters long and over 3,000 meters. Even with Jiruo's eyesight, he couldn't see everything. After reaching the meridian boundary, Jiruo's physical qualities had improved by leaps and bounds. Naturally, his eyesight had also improved significantly. He thought that such a strong and large demonic beast must be very delicious, right? Although it was ugly, it was ugly. Rosie, is this good? Jiruo didn't even consider whether the myriad appearances mirror could hold it. Although he still didn't know who the illusion ruler was, how weak could an existence that could be called a ruler be? As a product of the Lord of Fantasy, the storage space within the Wanzion's mirror was unimaginably vast. Rosie wrinkled her nose and said, Meow dash, Master, you can't eat this. It's poisonous. You can't eat it? Can't eat it? Jiruo smacked her lips. All right then, he wouldn't take up space. He could sell them, but it was not easy for Jiruo to explain where he came from. Moreover, it seemed that Wind God Falcon really needed the corpses of these high-level demons to advance. Therefore, Jiruo was too lazy to collect it and directly climbed onto the corpse of the centipede and climbed over to the other side. At this moment, the gravity on the mountaintop was nearly 100 times stronger, and the gravity in the center of the battlefield was 150 times stronger. The ones who were most severely affected were the 14 demons and the Wind God Falcon. The stronger the demon race was, the larger their bodies would be. They possessed the divine ability of the heavenly phenomenon, and every time they advanced, their bodies would grow in proportion. They were too heavily affected by gravity. Now, all of them were lying on the ground, and it was extremely difficult for the Wind God Sun to even flap her wings. She could not fly at all. However, those 14 demons were allies, while there was only one Wind God Falcon. The moon-swallowing toad kept spitting out ice breath, and the one-eyed giant widened its eyes, shooting out scorching rays of light. The beast realm hyena opened a gate of summoning above the Wind God Falcon, causing a large number of low-level canine demons to fall. The 14 demons used their own methods and continued to attack Wind God Sun under this terrifying gravitational field. Although the damage was comparable to scraping the skin, and although the Wind God Sun was also using wind and lightning to attack those demons. But dash. Jiruo climbed onto the corpse of the centipede and looked into the wind and snow. Concentric slugs. With such a huge body, it should be at least a 3-star, right? Tisk, these demons are really dirty. The Unity Slag was a type of monster that did not have any offensive abilities. Its main ability was called Unity. Creatures of the same camp could use the ability of the Unity Slag to link themselves with their teammates. When they were attacked, they would suffer 30% of the damage, and the remaining 70% of the damage would be shared by all their teammates. Wind God Falcon no longer had the advantage of speed. Not only did she have to endure the attacks of 14 peak 4-star demons, but her own attacks were also split up by the opponents. If this continued, even if Wind God Falcon's bloodline had advanced and she could advance to 5-star as long as she had enough energy, she would not be able to withstand it. It's my turn. Jiruo grinned and lowered his waist. Little Rosie, hold on tight. Tiny purple electric currents flowed around Jiruo's body. Luo Qian meowed excitedly, meow dash, go, go, go. Jiruo took a deep breath. Lightning crackled around his body. His speed instantly soared to the limit, even more than several times faster. Lightning flash. His entire body turned into purple lightning, and a bright light appeared. Borrowing Luo Qian's current anti-gravity talent, Jiruo leaped into the sky and flew toward the 14 demons. The speed was so fast that even the demons were shocked. How could this weak human not be restricted by gravity? Jiruo glided in the sky with the purple lightning. When he reached the expected position, he suddenly clapped his hands and the purple and green feathers merged into one. Jiruo raised them high above his head. Vitality Force Infusion, Characteristic 5, Ruyi activated. The purple-green feathered sword's volume skyrocketed, instantly turning into a 10-meter tall giant sword. Dimasha! The young man shouted as he descended from the sky with his huge sword. It was as if a divine weapon had descended from the sky. The moon-swallowing toad, which had been chosen as Jiruo's target, was terrified. It thought to itself that this human could ignore the gravitational field and that this move was so terrifying. It was probably going to die this time. Caw. Croak. No. Just as it was preparing to scream, the moon-swallowing toad suddenly realized that it didn't seem to be in much pain. When it came back to its senses, it realized that Jiruo was too weak to cut it. The moon-swallowing toad's entire body went numb. Why did you shout so loudly when you couldn't cut it? Caw. Damned human, how dare you scare me? It was even angrier, but it couldn't move under the gravitational field, and Jiruo was on its back, so it couldn't touch Jiruo for the time being. It could only roar twice, but it couldn't get angry. Jiruo felt slightly awkward when he saw that his full-force sword attack had only barely broken his skin. The skin was torn because of the sharpness of the purple-green feathers. Jiruo's own blood essence power was almost negligible. The difference between the two was too great, and the attribute damage that his blood essence power could cause was almost non-existent. But it didn't matter, because Jiruo had triggered a new achievement. Congratulations to the host for triggering the function, even if it was a flat A, he had to shout it out loud. Acquired characteristic, Sound Combo. Sound Combo, when the host continuously shouts the name of the move and attacks the target at the same time, all the attacks will be treated as the same attack until the continuous attack is interrupted. The power of the continuous attack that meets the conditions can be stacked infinitely until the continuous attack is interrupted. Once it is interrupted, the accumulated damage will be released at once, and the power will be calculated again. Remark, using the same move name and the same continuous attack method may produce unexpected effects. Remark, you can't reach 1,000 miles without accumulating small steps. You can't form a river without accumulating small streams. The same is true for damage. Remark, scoundrel. This is my last combo. Chapter 60, Childish Power, 1. Chapter 60, Childish Power, 1. Chirp dash, little Jiruo, what are you doing here? Wind God Falcon said anxiously, chirp dash, this isn't something you can interfere with. How can you be so insensible? Although her current situation was not very good, Jiruo was so weak and young. After spending time with her, Jiruo gave Wind God Falcon a good impression. She did not want to see Jiruo get hurt. Substitution. It was indeed a little heaven-defying. Auntie was also a female. Cough, cough. The child had just been born, so maternal instincts were more overflowing. Jiruo grinned and gave him a thumbs up. Don't worry, Auntie. I'll be fine. These guys are bullying you because of the number of beasts. I can't stand it, so I came to help you. Caw. Arrogant. Human, you can't even break my defense. What are you talking about? Is that so? Jiruo rubbed his chin. The moon-swallowing toad had been severely injured because the space behind it that was used to bind the moon had been destroyed. When the battle had just begun, it had been on the edge. When it regained control of the moon that was rising into the sky, it simply took out the corpse of the earth-overturning dragon and gathered the power of its allies, activating the power of the earth vein of Myriad Beast Mountain. Therefore, the moon-swallowing toad was at the back of the alliance. However, after thinking about it, Jiruo still felt that it was not too safe, so he came to the back of the moon-swallowing toad's body and began to slash the purple-green giant sword. He exhaled and said, Dimasha. His movements and voice were equally exaggerated, but the damage was unusually touching. Previously, he had the help of the falling momentum, but now, Jiruo was just standing there and slashing. It was barely enough to even break the skin. The moon-swallowing toad mocked, croak. Human, do you think you can hurt me? Childish. You can't even cut through my skin. Gwigwanine. Jiruo ignored him and continued to swing his sword while shouting Dimasha. Every time he slashed, he used almost all his strength. If it wasn't for the fact that the original owner was already used to cultivating bitterly, Jiruo wouldn't have been able to last long. But now, every time he used all his strength, he felt as if something was gradually waking up in his body. This was the habit of muscle memory. How much strength was used, how much muscles were moved, how many meridians and bones were affected. It was as if someone had used Jiruo's body to repeat all of this countless times. And this simple slash also received the buff of sword and sword duality. Jiruo swung his sword more smoothly. The moon-swallowing toad mocked her for a while, then ignored Jiruo and focused on attacking the wind god falcon. Ondu Wind God's son saw that Jiruo was not in any danger for the time being, so she also focused on fighting him. Jiruo kept shouting and slashing. 1 sword, 2 swords, 3 swords. Nothing had changed, no, at least Jiruo's aura was slowly rising. However, this did not seem to be of much use in the battle. Every sword strike landed on the same spot, repeating. 10 swords, 50 swords, 100 swords. The young man's aura seemed to have risen to a limit. That powerful aura even affected the spiritual chi between heaven and earth. Spirit. Chi. God. It was unprecedentedly condensed. A huge sword shadow that was so weak that it almost did not exist slowly condensed above the moon-swallowing toad, and spiritual energy gathered. 200 swords. 300 swords. 400 swords. Nearly 2 hours had passed, and the night seemed particularly long. Jiruo's sword swung faster and faster. Ondu Wind God's son was shocked. She was facing the mountain-top demon alliance, so she could clearly see what Jiruo's almost tangible aura had triggered. The fluctuation of the heaven and earth spirit chi became more and more strange, and the mountaintop demon alliance gradually realized that something was wrong. The moon-swallowing toad felt it the most because it was the main target. Caw. Damn humans. What did you do on my back? What kind of power is? It panicked. Jiruo didn't answer and continued to call Dimasha. Her whole body was soaked in sweat, as if she had just been fished out of the water. Even though he was in the center of the snowstorm, his body was still steaming hot. Chi Meridian Realm martial artists might not be able to effectively harm peak 4-star demon beasts. The damage was abnormal. But so what if he scraped it? What if he slashed you 400 times, 500 times, or even 1,000 times? After being scraped 1,000 times, wouldn't it be scraped away? Although it might not be that ridiculous, Jiruo's new ability was mainly to accumulate power. Accumulate 1,000 times. How terrifying was that power? Jiruo's cries were like a death note for the moon-swallowing toad, telling it that it did not have much time left. The moon-swallowing toad became more and more terrified. Stop shouting. Stop shouting. I'm scared of you. Stop. Jiruo still ignored him. He was completely drenched. Even Luo Qian jumped down from the top of her head in disgust and stayed by Jiruo's feet. 800 swords. 900 swords. 1,000 swords. Jiruo's arms were sore, and sweat poured down like rain. The giant golden sword of light above his head was already ready to strike, and Jiruo could not take it anymore. 1,068 sword strikes was the limit he could currently endure. Caw. Human. Stop. The moon-swallowing toad was terrified. At this moment, Jiruo finally reached his limit. He roared and used the last of his strength to slash down. Duh. Ma. West. Yeah. The attack of a Chi Meridian Realm martial artist condensed thousands of times. The extremely condensed aura attracted countless heaven and earth spiritual chi and condensed into a golden sword of light. The chi waves surged, the martial artist's chi and blood connected, and the spiritual energy went berserk. The moon-swallowing toad's body was pierced through in an instant, and it let out an extremely shrill scream. Its allies also spat out blood. 1,000 full-strength slashes from a Chi Meridian Realm martial artist, coupled with the highly condensed heaven and earth spiritual energy, and the 150 times gravity from the change in the earth vein, the power of the sword was unimaginable. Focus on one point and condense the 1,000 strikes. Even though the United Slag's United Heart allowed the Alliance to share 70% of the damage, the moon-swallowing toad still could not withstand it. Then, the giant sword of spiritual energy exploded, blowing up a small part of the moon-devouring toad's body, causing countless pieces of flesh and blood to fly everywhere. Jiruo stood with his sword and laughed. What power? Of course it's childish power. He was extremely tired at this moment, but he still forced himself to be spirited. He took out spiritual fruits and roasted meat that he had prepared earlier to eat. The energy consumption of this combo was greater than he had imagined. It was as if everything he had was drained in one go. The moment the sword's full power erupted, Jiruo's vision went black and he almost fell. But he did not. Jiruo suddenly understood the phrase bad guy. This is my last combo. What did it mean? So it really was the final. Jiruo fought back his fatigue and shouted, Auntie, hold on a little longer. I'll help you cut down 2 more. Ha 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 ha. Ondu Wind God Falcon's spirit was greatly boosted. Good child. Good job. Ha 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 ha. This praise did not increase the progress of the stage achievement. Thinking about it, it should be that an elder could only trigger it once. The moon-swallowing toad was already badly injured, and now that it had suffered such a heavy blow, it was on the verge of death, unable to croak again. Jiruo used the last of his chi and blood to shrink the giant purple-green sword. He carried Luo Jian in his hand and came to the top of the moon-swallowing toad's head. As he ate and recovered, he sat down and swayed his legs. He hummed happily, "Happy pond plant the seed streams will become the ocean." He grinned and patted the huge head of the moon-swallowing toad under him, saying, "Big toad, why aren't you croaking anymore?" After the golden sword exploded, the chaotic spiritual energy wreaked havoc in the moon-swallowing toad's body. It could no longer control the moon and could only let it rise into the sky. The space on its back that was originally used to bind the moon was completely shattered. It was not a demon with the space attribute, but it was using a secret treasure to forcefully bind the moon, deepening its connection with the myriad beast mountain secret realm and obtaining more powerful power. But now, this power had become its death talisman. The shattered space and chaotic spiritual energy wreaked havoc in his body. The 150 times gravity squeezed its body, causing its blood and damaged internal organs to leave its broken body at a terrifying speed. Luo Qian jumped excitedly on top of the moon-swallowing toad's head, as if she was stepping on it and feeling proud. Jiruo continued to sing a song with a smile on his face, "What an ugly toad." The moon-swallowing toad was about to die, and the snowstorm on the icy mountain peak gradually subsided. The alliance of monsters and demons on the mountaintop fell silent when they felt the power of that attack. As they listened to Jiruo singing, a faint fear rose in their hearts. After a moment of silence, the beast-level hyena closest to the moon-swallowing toad began to gnaw on the flesh and blood of the moon-swallowing toad that had fallen to its side after its body shattered. The alliance between these Yaomo was ridiculously fragile. Chapter 61, We were tree demons for a period of time. Chapter 61, We were tree demons for a period of time. The mountaintop demon alliance fell silent. It wasn't that Jiruo was strong, on the contrary, he was weak. However, it was precisely because of this that they could not help but feel fear. In the perception of all the demons, Jiruo was a weak human that they could easily crush. However, it was such a human who had killed the moon-swallowing toad amidst the unintelligible Demacia. What kind of terrifying explosive power was this? They triggered the earth veins that they could not completely control at the moment and decided to exhaust the wind god falcon to death. However, Jiruo's sudden outburst caught all the demons off guard. They could also see that the attack just now was powerful, but it took a long time to accumulate power. But the problem was they couldn't move now. The huge size that they were usually proud of made them regret it at this moment. If only they hadn't grown so big and weren't so heavy. At least he could move now. As they listened to Jiruo singing, the fear in their hearts grew stronger and stronger. They were afraid that Jiruo would rush over and slash them a few thousand times. They had all been injured just now. The 14 peak 4-star fiendish demons shared the burden with the help of the Unity Slag's ability, but they ended up with 1 dead and 13 injured. If Jiruo were to come a few more times, they would probably die before dawn. Although this was also due to the enhancement of the Earth Vein gravitational field, there was still the half-step 5-star wind god Falcon beside him. Of course, their worries were unnecessary. They knew their own business. Jiruo knew very well that he didn't even have the strength to swing his sword. He had consumed too much energy. The previous attack was based on the full strength of 1,000 Chi Pulse realm martial artists, and was amplified by a terrifying gravity of 150 times, which caused such a terrifying effect. But now, Jiruo had exhausted everything, so he couldn't move for a while. However, the other members of the Mountaintop Demon Alliance did not know. They were sure that the attack had consumed a lot of energy, but they couldn't be sure how much. Look at Tiruo, he was still in the mood to eat fruits and sing children's songs. After killing the toad, how did this look like he had consumed too much energy? All of a sudden, Beast Heart panicked and was on guard against Jiruo, afraid that Jiruo would suddenly attack him. The key was that Jiruo was in the back row. The monster race and demon race alliance, who could not move under the terrifying gravity, could not do anything to Jiruo. They could only listen to the song behind them and imagine the fear. In front of them, the wind god Falcon was still happily using wind and thunder to attack them. It was so strong that it was like a scraping sand. The Mountaintop Demon Alliance clearly had the absolute advantage in numbers, but for some reason, these demons felt as if they were surrounded by this man and Bertold was ridiculous. Seconds and minutes passed in the blink of an eye. Jiruo ate some spirit fruits and roasted meat, trying to recover as soon as possible. However, the consumption was too great. He only felt that his vision was blacking out. After Luo Qian was happy, she left Jiruo's side with some disdain. Jiruo was covered in sweat. In addition to participating in the martial arts examination, he had not showered for almost 7 days. At this moment, his body did not smell good. Of course, Luo Qian didn't run far either. Instead, she went around retrieving the broken body of the moon-swallowing toad with the Omnizo mirror in her mouth. She didn't dare to run too far away for fear of being attacked by the Yaomo alliance. The alliance of mountain monsters and demons was distracted by Jiruo's existence, and they were less and less concerned about Onto Wind God Falcon's attacks. They were all on guard against Jiruo. As a result, the pressure on the Wind God Falcon's end was getting lower and lower. Jiruo didn't need to do anything, she just needed to sit there and sing. Jiruo thought that if nothing unexpected happened, the dust should have settled tonight. However, at this moment the ground suddenly shook, and Jiruo's expression changed. He didn't have the strength to deal with anything now. Even if the Wanxiang mirror had the ability to travel through space, he didn't have the strength to activate it. Luo Qian hurriedly ran back to Jiruo's side and said anxiously, "Meow, meow, meow. Master." There was a large amount of demonic chi approaching. "Let's run." Not only Jiruo and Luo Qian, but all the living beings on the mountain peak at this moment felt the sudden vast demonic aura. That's right. It was vastness. Onto Wind God Falcon's face changed, and even her scraping attack paused for a moment. The members of the Mountaintop Demon Alliance were stunned for a moment before they became ecstatic. The Cyclops lay on the ground and roared arrogantly, "Roar! Ha ha ha! Our reinforcements are coming. Wind God Falcon, you and that weak human can wait for death." Onto Wind God Falcon said stubbornly, "Chirp dash, bullshit. How do you know that the vast demonic chi is here to help you? I even said that they were here to help me." The Beast Realm Hyena laughed maniacally, "Woof woof. You're the only demon on the mountain that's about to advance to 5-star, and you're still in cahoots with those human Chi-level human martial artists are full of treasures. You haven't tasted it before, right? The benefits of killing you are greater than killing us? Ha 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 ha." Onto Wind God Falcon stopped talking. She knew that the Beast Realm Hyena was right. There were very few feelings between demons and devils, only interests. Moreover, she had lived on the sky-floating island for a long time and rarely contacted other demons. Naturally, she would not have any friends. That vast demonic aura couldn't possibly be here to help her. At the same time, on the other side of the mountaintop that was blocked by the huge corpse of the centipede, the ancient star continent also sensed the vast demonic chi and frowned. "We're in big trouble. There are actually powerful demons coming over." They must have sensed the strange movements on the mountaintop and felt that the battle was almost over, so they came to pick up the loot. When Liang Shixian heard this, he was a little flustered and hurriedly said, "Then what should we do?" "Teacher, student Jiruo hasn't returned yet, let's..." Gu Xingzhou's thoughts raced as he gritted his teeth and said, "Student Liang Shixian, I'll explode 2 more star whirlpools later and burn my life force to find student Jiruo first. Don't worry, even if I have to give it my all, I will bring you all away." He who had self-detonated 5-star whirlpools did not have much future to speak of. Theoretically, his path forward had been sealed, but Liang Shixian and Jiruo were different. These 2 children had a limitless future on this martial examination. The 2 children had already reached the top of the mountain. This was something that had never happened in the more than 100 years since the Mystic Realm martial examination system was implemented. Their future would definitely be much further than that of the ancient star continent. "It's a pity that I can't see that future." Gu Xingzhou's mood was a little low, but he did not show it. Instead, he said with a determined expression, "Student Liang Shixian, when teacher self-destructs the star whirlpool, his vitality might go berserk. At that time, he might hurt you, but don't worry, teacher will definitely bring you out alive. If I focus on escaping, those tree demons shouldn't be able to catch up to us." Although he was seriously injured, Gu Xingzhou was still stronger than Liang Shixian. Therefore, he saw the vast green shadow rushing towards the top of the mountain. Although he was a little puzzled as to why these usually gentle tree demons would suddenly act together, the current situation was critical and he did not have time to think too much. However, just as he was about to self-destruct again, Liang Shixian suddenly reached out and pulled him back. "Wait, teacher, what did you say just now? Tree demon?" Liang Shixian's expression was a little strange. "Yes, I am. Yes." Gu Xingzhou nodded solemnly. "I've never seen such a large-scale tree demon migration. It's too late, I'll explode first." "Teacher. Teacher." Liang Shixian hurriedly said. "Don't be anxious. We might really be safe this time." "Why do you say that?" Gu Xingzhou was stunned. "Do you still remember what I said before?" Liang Shixian asked, "Before I met Ant Wind God Falcon, Jiruo and I were tree demons for a period of time." Gu Xingzhou's expression was blank for a moment before he slowly typed. "Ahem, anyway, let's see what happens first." Chapter 62, 61, Brother Divine Tree. We're here to save you, _L. Chapter 62, 61, Brother Divine Tree. We're here to save you, _L. The Mountaintop Demon Alliance laughed wildly and mocked. Onduwind God Sun's expression became more and more solemn, and her attacks became more and more crazy. It was as if she was going to do everything she could to drag a few people down with her. Chirp dash, little friend Jiruo, if Auntie is unfortunately defeated and dies in this battle, please help take care of Dobao and Erbao. The two brothers have just been born and have never harmed humans. If possible, please take them away from Myriad Beast Mountain. I know that you humans have the means to leave the secret realm. She let out a final mournful cry. Chirp. Auntie will do everything to open a path for you. You must live well. He had heard similar words before entering Myriad Beast Mountain. Over the past 2 months, the homeroom teacher had been telling them to live well. Before entering the examination hall, the principal had repeatedly reminded the students to live well. Now, it was Antwind God Falcon. How many days had he known this auntie who was suspected to have been beaten to autistic by a high-level martial artist? Jiruo was a little dazed. Woof. 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 Wind God Falcon. You're really going back in time. You actually asked a human for help? Ridiculous. Don't you know that we demons and humans are mortal enemies? He even entrusted his child to a human, else just death anyway. Why don't you let your child stay in Myriad Beast Mountain? When you enter our stomachs, it can be considered a family reunion. Ha 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 ha. Chirp dash, little Jiruo isn't that kind of person. He is the master of my 2 children. A peak 4-star demon who had never acted before. Do you believe what you just said? Those who are not of the same race will have different hearts. This was a saying that humans had said. Onduwind God Falcon didn't know how to retort. She looked at Jiruo as if she was asking for help. She wanted to get an answer from Jiruo, even if it was just a temporary lie. She had no other choice. Auntie, don't listen to their nonsense. Jiruo struggled to stand up, feeling dizzy. Before he could finish, Jiruo saw a vast green tide surging in the direction of the vast demonic chi. The vast green tide that surged like an ocean seemed endless. The noisy rustling sound was even more shocking than the sound of the waves. It was the sound of leaves rubbing against each other. It was as if the endless sounds of leaves rubbing against each other, although noisy, were expressing the same meaning. Shasha dash, Brother Divine Tree. We're here to save you. The Mountaintop Demon Beast Alliance was stunned. Most of the time, demons could communicate without any obstacles, so they could understand the words of the tree demons. Divine Tree Brothers. They didn't have any plant-type demons. What were those tree demons talking about? However, before they could figure it out, they heard Jiruo's surprised voice. Jiruo suddenly had the strength to jump up excitedly on the corpse of the moon-swallowing toad. He waved his hands and shouted in surprise, "Brothers! I'm here, I'm here!" All the demon beasts, including the wind god Falcon, were stunned. What the hell are you doing here? The tree demon is a demon, you are a human. How could those tree demons be looking for you? Shasha dash, brothers, charge. The Divine Tree Brothers are at the top of the mountain. Sha dash, the demons on the mountain are bullying the trees. You actually want to pick your teeth with my clan's Divine Tree. Even grass can't stand it? Sha dash, charge duck. Mother of Asterisker. Mountaintop Demon Alliance. Onduwind God Falcon, I. Did these tree demons eat gunpowder? Why was he so hot-tempered? Jiruo was still waving his hands excitedly, but perhaps because they were too far away, the tree demons did not hear him. The old and deep voice of the sacred mountain tree suddenly sounded, "Everyone on the mountain peak, we are here to win respect. Our tree demon clan's need for survival is already very low, but you are going too far. Return my clan's Divine Tree." Guxing Zhou watched as the endless group of tree demons approached, ready to detonate his starjade at any moment to burn his life force. As a peak 4-star tree demon ancestor, the sacred mountain tree not only had facial features, but it could also speak human language, so the ancient star continent could understand it. Divine Tree? The tree demon clan had a tree of God. Even though their objective isn't us, We can't pretend that we didn't hear such important news. Liang Shixian said, Teacher, the divine tree that old tree demon mentioned might be referring to me and Jiruo. When Jiruo brought me into the group of tree demons, he said that we were fertilizer trees at that time. Those tree demons believed us and even caught demon beasts for us to eat. Gu Xingzhe. He looked at the tree demons running past him with a dumbfounded expression, and he was shocked. What exactly did these two examines do in the mystic realm? Were they really here to take the exam? Normally speaking, the movement speed of the tree demon was not fast. However, the current situation was different. No one knew what the leader of the tree demons who had been with Jiruo had told their ancestor. The sacred mountain tree was extremely agitated at the moment. It was afraid that if it ran too slow, the two legendary must have divine trees for the tree demon's home and travel would be killed. Therefore, they had been connecting with the earth veins along the way, performing a small area of earth vein reversal, shifting the earth so that their race could move faster. Soon, they arrived at the center of the battlefield. Along the way, due to the large-scale migration of the tree demon tribe, some weak or powerful demons who did not want to cause trouble had long left. As for the treemen, they had been rushing all the way and did not pay attention to any information. They did not know anything and rushed to the top of the mountain. In theory, the sacred mountain wood was of the same origin as the earth-overturning dragon. Therefore, the earth-overturning dragon's corpse, which was still alive, did not block the way. Instead, it released the roadblock early on. And the moment he ran here, the sacred wood mountain was a little confused. Why did they even start a fight? It looked like they were fighting quite fiercely. Now that the distance was close, Jiruo's voice could finally be heard by the tree demons. Brothers. I'm here. Here. Come and help. Shenwood was stunned for a moment. Did this human go mad? What does our search for the divine tree have to do with a human like you? Who's your brother? However, before it could say anything, the tree demon beside it that had been encouraging it at the beginning suddenly became excited. It pointed in the direction of the human and shook the tree trunk crazily. Swoosh. 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 It was the divine tree brothers. The divine tree brothers are still alive. We're not late. It looked at Jiruo carefully and recalled what the tree demon had said to it at the beginning. The sacred mountain tree instantly felt uncomfortable. Divine tree my ass. That's AF *ing human. The sacred mountain tree shook its trunk in anger and was flipped over by the tree demon. Using the entire clan's strength to save two humans. Are you stupid? Chapter 63, I can pinky promise you. Chapter 63, I can pinky promise you. Although Liang Shixian had said that, Gu Xingzhe was still a little worried. He asked Liang Shixian to support him as he shakily carried his shaky golden body of martial arts to the main battlefield. If anything unexpected happened, he could detonate his Starjade immediately in exchange for power and leave with his two children. Liang Shixian was actually a little worried himself. After all, Jiruo was too worrisome. Thus, Liang Shixian supported Gu Xingzhe and brought De Bao and Erbao as they slowly walked towards the corpse of the centipede. De Bao and Erbao had just been born. They couldn't speak or understand human language, so they couldn't communicate with Liang Shixian. However, since they had already left, if they didn't leave, they would be pressed down by the gravitational field and couldn't stand up. Therefore, they followed suit. Because Gu Xingzhe was seriously injured and his golden body of martial arts was on the verge of collapse, and Liang Shixian was only a level 9 martial apprentice, their speed of advancement was not fast. Earth-flipping dragons were born in the earth vein. Theoretically, they could be considered as the children of the earth vein of Myriad Beast Mountain, so they had the ability to control the earth vein of Myriad Beast Mountain. The sacred mountain wood had been rooted in the Myriad Beast Mountain for many years. Its roots were incomparably huge. In essence, it could be considered to have grown on the earth vein. It could also control the earth vein of the Myriad Beast Mountain to a certain extent. It was the same for those tree demons. They had a certain ability to adjust the energy of the earth vein, so they were not affected by the gravitational field. In fact, because of their arrival, the gravitational field on the mountaintop had been slightly reduced. Dash, but they really are the divine trees. The little tree demon leader said with some grievance, Dash, we've experienced it personally, their fertilizer conversion efficiency is really high. You still dare to say that? The sacred mountain tree was exasperated. How could it not know that humans had a high efficiency in converting fertilizer? The mountain god tree looked around and felt embarrassed. It killed the tree demon and the little leader's heart was all dead. Let's go. Go back. Throwing a tree and making a fool of yourself. The sacred mountain tree angrily rebuked and turned to leave. Since there was no divine tree, what was it still doing here? Fighting doesn't hurt. Although the tree demon's 5 senses and 6 senses were not as good as the flesh demons, it was not completely undetectable. It planned to leave. Just treat it as a wasted trip. Jiruo saw that something was wrong. He came here aggressively to take a look and then planned to leave. Patriarch. I really am the divine tree. A fertilizer tree. Bulsh **t, the sacred mountain tree said angrily. You are clearly a human. Also, don't call me ancestor. Jiruo scratched his head. Otherwise shall I poop for you on the spot. The mountaintop demon alliance's expressions were a little strange, and Wind God Falcon didn't interrupt. She didn't have the right to speak. Jiruo looked at the sacred mountain tree seriously and said, Ancestor, don't call me ancestor. Then Grandpa Shenmue. Jiruo didn't wait for the next interruption and said earnestly, Look, you brought your race all the way to the top of the mountain. You must have consumed a lot of energy, right? Although you might not care, you're already here. The little leader of the tree demons, Shasha, yes, ancestor, we're here. Can you shut up? If there really is a divine tree, then so be it, but look, where did this divine tree come from? Risking his life for a few outsiders? Are you crazy or am I crazy? When we get back, you'll see how I'm going to tidy you. Shasha dash, but I don't have a mouth anyway. When the beast hyena saw this, it grinned, woof woof woof. I thought you guys were here for something, but you were actually fooled by a few humans and little tree demons. You're really going back in time. If you know what's good for you, hurry up and adjust the earth energy and let us out. When we eat that damn wind god falcon, I'll leave you some bones. Jiruo saw this and quickly said, Hey. Grandpa, you saw it too. This guy is threatening you. On the contrary, we humans have never done anything to your race, right? If you let these guys go today, who knows what they will do to your race in the future. Although I'm not a tree demon, I got along very well with those tree demon brothers. The facts have proven that we humans can live in harmony with your race. We can form a new symbiotic relationship. Foreign affairs speaker increases the appeal of words. Substitution allowed the tree demons to recall some beautiful memories of living in harmony with humans. A tree demon with obvious cracks on its trunk said, Shasha dash, that's right, old ancestor. We didn't know they were humans before, but when we were escaping, my body was eaten by worms. They were the ones who brought me along. If it weren't for them, I probably wouldn't have been able to see you. Ancestor, he's right. The little leader of the tree demons also said, Shasha dash, ancestor, although they are not tree demons, they can indeed produce fertilizer quickly. Moreover, ancestor, we're already here. Isn't it a little embarrassing to go back without doing anything? These demons on the mountain peak really look down on us. Even if it wasn't for the divine tree, we were often bullied by these flesh demons. If we don't do anything today, they will definitely bully us even more in the future. The more he thought about it, the angrier he became. The more he thought about it, the more he lost. Think about it. The lines on the divine mountain tree's trunk twisted as if it was struggling. The words of the tree of the same clan and Jiruo made it a little dazed. As a demon born from the myriad beast mountain's earth vein, although the earthworm, a flesh demon, had died, it had lived very well when it was alive. On the other hand, the sacred mountain tree itself, although not dead, had always lived carefully. Other demons of the same level had never respected it at all. It was indeed a peak 4-star demon, but it was a plant demon. It was inconvenient to move, and its attack power was not strong, but here, the power of the earth vein was activated and revealed. This was its home ground. And humans. Those weak humans would come in every year and leave behind a large amount of fertilizer. No matter how large its roots were, it could not cover the entire myriad beast mountain. After many demons ate the fruits it bore, the final fertilizer might not fall into the range that it could absorb. As for the humans, they would be at the foot of the mountain every year. It had extended its roots there early on. Every year, those humans would come. It was as if it had secretly made an agreement and had never broken it. Jiruo's substitution, the increased language appeal of diplomacy speaker, and the words of the tree demon's race, this caused the sacred mountain tree to waver. It looked at the corpse of the earthworm that was still alive with a blank expression. No one knew what it was thinking. The relationship between demons and devils was not harmonious. Wind God Falcon said, Chirp. If you let me out and let me kill them, I'll help you gain a foothold on the mountaintop. I won't take a single piece of the earthworm's corpse. I'll give it all to you. You share the same origin as the earth overturning dragon, so you can definitely take this opportunity to advance further. She also saw the divine mountain tree's dilemma and planned to add fuel to the fire. The earthworm's attributes were not compatible with hers, so she had no intention of taking it in the first place. Woof woof, the beast hyena said arrogantly. Wind God Falcon, aren't you afraid of hurting your tongue when you talk big? With your current appearance. Divine mountain tree, if you know what's good for you, let us out. Otherwise, your clan can forget about staying in Myriad Beast Mountain in the future. Jiruo looked at the ugly hyena in surprise. He thought to himself, is this guy really stupid or something? Can't you see what's going on? He couldn't even move, yet he still dared to be so arrogant. However, Jiruo realized that something was wrong. He was still on Tunchan's corpse, in the back row of the mountain-top alliance of demons and demons. From his position, he could see that there seemed to be an indistinct layer of light and shadow covering the front of the demons' heads. Jiruo was curious and looked carefully. He discovered that the light shadows were actually the faces of demons. Those glowing faces were mocking the divine tree, and the words they said were extremely unpleasant. Behind the light shadow, the real faces of the demons were filled with fear. They shook their heads crazily under the terrifying gravity, and kept opening their mouths to roar silently, as if they were trying to deny something. However, no sound came out. Only the glowing faces were speaking. This way solution. Jiruo immediately checked Luo Jian's talent. Talent, anti-gravity plus, illusion breaking plus. It wasn't rosy. The little leader interrupted again, Shasha dash, patriarch, they have already said so. Can you bear with it? I can't stand this. The other tree demons also responded. They had come to the top of the mountain with the determination to fight to the death. They had so many trees, how could they be afraid of these flesh demons that could not even move? For a moment, the green leaves all over the mountain surged like waves, and the trees were furious. Rustle. The atmosphere has already reached this point. Jiruo, that's right, Grandpa Shenmue. The atmosphere has already reached this point. Look, if you don't kill them today, they will definitely take revenge on you if they survive this calamity. Besides, you're already here. It's not easy for everyone to make this trip. These demons speak so unpleasantly. Let's just kill them. The sacred mountain tree was still hesitating. Jiruo didn't know what to do, but compared to the mountain monster alliance and onto wind god falcon, Jiruo's relationship with these tree demons was theoretically closer. If you help, I can think of a way to help you get some fertilizer from Great Xia. Our Great Xia has a lot of fertilizer, Jiruo said casually. Unexpectedly. Is that true? Jiruo's eyes lit up. Chapter 64, Block their mouth. Chapter 64, Block their mouth. Jiruo had never expected that the thing that convinced the sacred mountain tree was actually that Great Xia has a lot of fertilizer. As the saying goes, people are made of iron and rice is made of steel. If you don't eat a meal, you'll be hungry. In fact, the relationship between plant-type demons and fertilizers was similar. Jiruo didn't know what fertilizer freedom meant to these plant demons who were aloof from worldly affairs. Pinky swear. The sacred mountain tree was puzzled. It's a promise we humans make. After the pinky swear, you can't go back on your word. Jiruo explained. Good. Pinky swear. The sacred mountain tree stretched out a small branch towards Jiruo and made a pinky promise with him. Jiruo happily made a pinky swear with the sacred mountain tree. Pinky swear. Hang yourself 100 years, don't change. Congratulations to the host for triggering the function, pinky swear, no change for 100 years. Acquired skill, pinky retractor. Pinky hook, under the premise that both parties are willing, a pinky hook will be used to make a promise. When the promise is made, the relationship with the promised target will always be friendly. If the promise is completed, the favorability will be permanently increased. The specific effect of increasing favorability depended on the content of the agreement and the time limit for completion. Remark, don't break your promise. Children who don't keep their promises will be hated by others. Remark, you must keep your promise. Remark, reach pulling Hanglu years old, don't change. Then it's a deal. Jiruo said happily, Grandpa Shenmue, you can control the earth vein, right? Can I trouble you to release anti-wind god falcon? He would leave the rest to the anti. Good. At this moment, a dazzling radiance suddenly burst out from the eye socket of the Cyclops giant. It endured the heartache and released a part of the restriction of the scorching sun that had not been completely refined in its eyes, breaking through the external illusion around its head. Sacred mountain wood, it said in exasperation. You're old and muddle-headed. How dare you believe the words of a human? We demons and humans are mortal enemies. The Cyclops hated the 100-eyed magic crow to the core. That damned fellow actually dared to control them. Of course, it also hated the sacred mountain tree. This guy actually wanted to attack them for a pile of poop. However, now was not the time to pursue this matter. If they could not stop the sacred mountain tree quickly, the consequences would be unimaginable. However, the sacred mountain tree could not be bothered with it. Demons and humans were mortal enemies, so what did it have to do with the sacred mountain tree? The tree demons could survive by just basking in the sun and drinking water. They had never killed humans. It had even sent fruits to humans. Onto wind god falcon said excitedly, chirp divine mountain tree, don't listen to that blockhead. Help me remove the restraints on my body, and I'll help you get rid of your worries. Thus, the sacred mountain tree moved. Its huge roots spread out, penetrating the ground covered in ice and snow. The corpse of the earth dragon surrounded the top of the mountain. The remaining power in the corpse was activated by the demons, exposing part of the earth vein of Myriad Beast Mountain. The sacred mountain wood could now control the power of the earth vein more easily. The earth vein at the top of the mountain changed again. Chirp dash, ha ha ha. A wise decision. The sacred mountain tree should have been like this long ago. Ondu God's son escaped, but the gravity on the mountaintop demon alliance's body became stronger and stronger. Thick tree roots drilled out from the ground and tightly bound the demons. The roots of the tree were full of barbs. This was not something that the sacred mountain wood had grown on its own, but it had appeared after being affected by the power of the earth vein. It seemed that the earthworm was still resentful of his death. Ondu God's son was freed. With a carefree cry, her sharp wings and hard bird claws quickly attacked the mountain-top demon alliance L, and the middle of the square was the same heart slug. The ability of the United Slab allowed the link to share the damage. However, once the United Slab was attacked, the damage it received would be shared equally with all the links. This was a two-way ability. The Unity Slag definitely did not want to die, so it would desperately activate its ability to spread out all the damage it received. Attacking the Unity Slag was equivalent to attacking all the demons at the same time. The number of wounds on the demons' bodies was increasing at an extremely fast rate. Suddenly, the illusion around their heads dissipated, and the demons began to curse sincerely. Grandpa Shenmue, their words are so unpleasant. Isn't this blocking their mouths? Shasha dash, yes. Shut their mouths. Shasha dash, how dare you be so arrogant at this point? It's all blocked. Before the sacred mountain tree could say anything, the tree demons it brought with it began to move excitedly. Densely packed roots, vines, and branches surged toward all the demons, trying to block their mouths. However, these tree demons were too low level and could not see anything. They could not see where the demon's mouth was. As for the tree demons' roots, vines, branches, when the numbers were too large, they blocked all the holes on the demons' bodies. The mountaintop demon alliance was not small in size, and each hole was stuffed with tens to hundreds of plant organs. It was stuffed full. Jiruo couldn't help but shiver. The scene was too terrifying. However, not all demons were suffering. Jiruo saw that a few female demons even had an intoxicated expression on their faces. Chirp dash, pui. Ondu God's son spat in disgust and stopped torturing these demons. Her wings turned into a heavenly blade, and lightning surged from her body. She turned into a purple lightning stream and used her bird body to execute lightning flash to behead all the demons that could not resist. Gu Xingzhou and Liang Shixian climbed up the corpse of the centipede with great difficulty, nervously looking towards the center of the battlefield. Then, they were stunned. Everyone, work harder. Help me cut this big toad into smaller pieces, thank you. There's also this bowl, let me see, cut this position and get a few pieces of steak. By the way, Grandpa Shenmue, can you help me make a pot with the power of the earth vein? The beef soup is delicious. Meow, meow, meow dash, put the chili in the chili. Master, I want to eat spicy food, spicy food. Brother over there, pluck some of the red heart pepper on your head for me. I'll make the seasoning. Gu Xingzhou and Liang Xian looked at each other and saw the confusion in each other's eyes. Was it over just like that? So you really are the divine tree? After a long while, Gu Xingzhou squeezed out these words from between his teeth. To be honest, Liang Shixian was also a little confused. L didn't expect things to develop like this either. Was this a F***ing battlefield? He would believe it even if you said that this was a market or a kitchen of a food stall. Class monitor, teacher, you're here. Jiruo saw Liang Shixian and Gu Xingzhou standing on the corpse of the disaster centipede in the distance and waved happily. One was just about to ask Ondu God Falcon to pick you up. Come quickly, let's have a banquet. Grandpa Shenmue, could you please help me bring my classmates and teachers here? The divine mountain tree extended its branches, and the lush leaves gathered into a ball in front of the two dumbfounded people, like the divine mountain tree opening its palm to the two of them. Among the leaves, there were still young birds poking their heads out of their nests. Their nests were built on the sacred mountain wood. They were just ordinary birds that did not even have star class, but they could live on the sacred mountain wood. They were not afraid of the powerful demonic aura of the peak 4-star demon clan. And the sacred mountain tree did not seem to mind these little fellows living on its body. Symbiosis. The nest of young birds seemed to be used to the sudden movement of their nest. They tilted their heads and said, "Hello, this is our home. Do you want to come up?" De Bao leaned closer to take a look. Chirp, your house is so small. It can't even fit one of my paws. Ha ha ha. Chiu Xingqiao, yes, yes. Too small, too small. The nest of young birds was furious. Go away, go away. You are not welcome in our house. The young birds chased the two babies away angrily while turning their heads to complain loudly about their behavior to the sacred mountain tree. Gu Xingzhou and Liang Shixian could not understand the conversation between these little fellows. After hesitating for a moment, they were about to walk up to the branches of the divine tree. Suddenly, the branch retracted. What was going on? Their raised feet froze in the air, feeling a little awkward. Chapter 65, Demon Crow, 1. Chapter 65, Demon Crow, 1. Later, the Shenmue tree changed the tree branch where the little creatures lived and brought the two over. Teacher, class monitor, come, sit down. I'll make you something to eat. Jiruo happily greeted the two people who looked confused. How did it end? Gu Xingzhou had thought that a large number of these tree demons would die. He did not expect it didn't look like there was any less. Onduwind God Falcon tilted her head slightly and straightened the messy feathers on her body. She was also injured, but it was still within the acceptable range. Although there were many wounds on his body, this degree of injury was considered very light among demons. Shenmue said, the Chaozang clan still needs to adjust the earth veins, so they can't make that clay pot for the time being. At this moment, the entire mountain peak was covered in ice and snow, and the earth veins were becoming more and more chaotic. If they were not dealt with in time, it would not be long before the entire Myriad Beast Mountain was affected. The earthworm was the child of the Myriad Beast Mountain. Its death caused a small-scale geological change in the entire Myriad Beast Mountain. Now, its corpse, which should have been eaten by the demons, had returned to its original state. However, due to the lack of some essential things, although the corpse was still alive, it was already truly dead. The corpse that had recovered once again triggered the sorrowful cry of the earth vein. If it was left alone, this sorrowful cry would cause all the living beings in the Myriad Beast Mountain's mystic realm to cry out with it. Chirpruo, there are eggshells left behind by the rock dragon lizard when it was born in Auntie's nest. Auntie will go and get them for you. How about that? Okay. Thank you. Onduwind God Falcon flapped her wings and left. Jiruo captured Dabao and Yarbao, and at a young age, they flapped their wings and became apprentice chefs to help cut meat. Classmate Jiruo, can you tell me what happened just now? Gu Xingzhou asked after a moment of silence. Yes, Jiruo, tell me quickly, what happened just now? Why does it look like you and these tree demons? What if the relationship between brothers is even better? Oh, this. Jiruo scratched his head. I promised them that when I go back, I will find a way to get them a lot of fertilizer. They are very happy, so that's it? Gu Xingzhou was stunned for a moment. A fertilizer? Yes, I am. Jiruo nodded and said, LVE told Grandpa Shenmue that if I have the chance in the future, I'll bring fertilizer for them from Great Xia. They can exchange spiritual fruits with Maybe the way. Teacher, can you contact the person in charge of this? Grandpa Divine Mountain Tree said that after it controls the earth vein of Myriad Beast Mountain, our Great Xia can use fertilizer to exchange for spiritual fruits with them or ask them to help grow food. They were very professional when it came to planting. Gu Xingzhou's mouth was wide open. A deal. It's a promise. Jiruo corrected. But they are demons, you. The ancient star continent naturally knew how Great Xia's territory in the Myriad Beast Mountain secret realm came about. The mystic realm martial examination system was indeed effective, but this accident also proved that demons could not be trusted. This training ground would definitely be abandoned. This martial examination would be the last martial examination of the mystic realm. I know. Jiruo grinned. Teacher, don't worry. I've hooked up with Grandpa Mountain God Mu. La hook. Gu Xingzhou couldn't keep up with Jiruo's thoughts. Don't worry, teacher. There won't be a problem. Gu Xingzhou looked at the genuine smile on Jiruo's face, his emotions complicated. He suddenly felt a little envious of Jiruo. If only he could be so happy. The young man was not worried that he would break the appointment. It would be fine if Gu Xingzhou agreed. Even if he didn't agree, Jiruo would return to Great Xia and rest to recover his strength. Then, he would use the Omnizo mirror to open a portal under the school's manure pit. If he didn't have enough power, he could only make the mountain god would wait a little longer. Let's not talk about this for now. Class monitor, come and help. Let's have a good meal and go back. Liang Shixian glanced at Gu Xingzhou and hesitated for a moment. Then, he rolled up his sleeves and ran over. Coming. Looking at the two busy children, Gu Xingzhou was in a daze. The Mystic Realm's martial examination system was really too cruel. Although the martial examination was not mandatory, many students still died in this Myriad Beast Mountain every year. Those students could have grown up healthier and happier. Little Rosie had gotten a beehive from somewhere. The honey was golden and alluring, and a large group of bees was chasing little Rosie up and down. Meow, meow, meow master. Help, These bees are stinging me to death. Jiruo picked up Luo Qian and apologized to the bees seriously. Then, with the help of the tree demon that the bees originally resided in, the bees forgave Luo Qian and were willing to share the honey they had painstakingly collected. Gu Xingzhou suddenly felt that it was somewhat absurd. This child was her social skills that strong. He had noticed Rosie a long time ago, but he did not pay much attention to her. Although he had encountered a cat demon before and had seen it eat people with his own eyes, he had never seen it before. In Gu Xingzhou's opinion, the changes in the myriad beast mountain's earth veins were related to that cat demon. But he never suspected Rosie. Firstly, Luo Qian was too weak. Secondly, Luo Qian was a black cat, while the cat demon from before was white. Secondly, the white cat had obviously reached the adult stage a long time ago, while Rosie was only in the infant stage. The two cats didn't even match in size. The ancient star continent had never heard of any demon that had the ability to change its growth stage. There might be, but it was definitely not a cat. Therefore, Gu Xingzhou did not think too much about it. He thought that the white cat was already injured before it met him, and then it was hit in the head by his palm. It was probably not going to live. The ancient star continent fell silent as they looked at the sacred mountain wood that was adjusting the earth veins and the tree demons that were happily looking for a place to take root again. This time, other than saving thousands of students at the beginning of the martial arts exam with his powerful mobility, he didn't do anything else. The discovery of Jiruo and the others' traces, the details are not discussed. He is in the process of the self-destruct 5-star jade, but he self-destruct 5-star jade. It seems that there is no big help to Jiruo and the others. Gu Xingzhou suddenly felt that his trip to the mountain peak this time was like to blow up firecrackers. He had to do something. Gu Xingzhou thought for a moment and took a deep breath. The damage to his meridians and star jade was a little severe. It would be a lie to say that it was not painful, but Gu Xingzhou did not mention it. He walked towards Jiruo and Liang Shixian. "Child, you want to roast meat with honey, right? Teacher will help you brush the honey." All right. The addition of Gu Xingzhou allowed the three of them to be so close to each other for the first time since they arrived at the main battlefield. Ondu God Falcon went back to the nest to find a replacement for the pot. The sacred mountain tree was busy adjusting the earth veins. The perception of ordinary tree demons was ridiculously weak. The strongest among the three, Gu Xingzhou, was seriously injured. Jiruo was unable to fight for a short period of time. This was a great opportunity. No one noticed that the snowy ground beside the three of them suddenly trembled slightly. A faint black shadow passed through it, and the killing intent that had been hidden for a long time was suddenly revealed. Meow. Luo Qian didn't even think and pounced on Jiruo. JL Ruo was stunned for a moment. In an instant, M's entire vision was covered by a dense black feather that drilled out from the snow. The previous sword attack had consumed too much energy. Jiruo had not recovered yet, and his reaction was a little slow. The 100-eyed demonic crow that had been hiding for a long time finally revealed itself. It charged at Jiruo with a ferocious smile, carrying an infinite killing intent. Countless crow feathers pierced through like sharp blades, enveloping the three of them in an instant. The first to bear the brunt was Jiruo. After killing these three human ancient martial art practitioners and collecting the corpses of its former allies, the sacred mountain would not be able to catch up to it. It was the biggest winner of this battle. The 100-eyed demon crow almost laughed out loud. This was a bloody win. Chirp, be careful. Dabao and Dabao controlled the wind and thunder. They were already beside Jiruo, and now they were in front of Jiruo to block. Puff. 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 The sound of a sharp blade cutting through flesh rang out. The extremely hard and sharp feathers of Dabao and Erbao were unable to resist and were cut apart by the crow feathers. However, they also blocked a portion of it. Meow. Don't hurt my master. Luo Qian shrieked. Her entire body suddenly emitted an indistinguishable strong malice. Jiruo was in a daze and almost wanted to raise his hand to slap Luo Qian. Fortunately, the intense malice did not last long. However, more than 90% of the crow feathers changed their attack trajectory and turned towards Luo Qian. The dense black crow feathers pierced into Luo Qian's body, turning her into a porcupine. Luo Qian screamed in pain. The 100-eyed demon crow was slightly surprised, but since things had come to this, there was no way to stop. It was caught off guard. All of this happened in the blink of an eye. It wasn't that the 100-eyed magic crow was slow, but that Luo Qian, Dabao, and Erbao's reactions were too fast. Gu Xingzhou, who was heavily injured, had yet to react. The 100-eyed magic crow knew that this was not the time to hesitate. Although more than 90% of its feathers had been blocked by Luo Qian, Dabao, and Erbao. Crow feathers, there were still 2 left. It was enough to kill these 3 humans. It had observed carefully just now. Jiruo was already exhausted, Gu Xingzhou was seriously injured, and Liang Shixian was so weak that it could be ignored. And the truth was just as it had seen. Jiruo had consumed too much energy, and Gu Xingzhou was in a very bad state. The two people who had the ability to resist were unable to do so at this moment. Among the three, only Liang Shixian was not exhausted or injured. However, he was ultimately just a martial apprentice. He reacted, but his body could not keep up. The hundred-eyed magic crow was overjoyed. Although there were some accidents in this ambush, it was still within the acceptable range. Inexplicably, the hundred-eyed magic crow seemed to have heard some strange sound. What was that sound? It was slightly puzzled. Iron. Cloth. Shirt. Chapter 66, Chapter 66, The Last Iron Shirt. Chapter 66, The Last Iron Shirt. Liang Shixian was the first to react. He was indeed the weakest, but he had not suffered any injuries and did not consume much energy. His condition was actually the best among the three. When the hundred-eyed magic crow appeared, he did not react in time. When De Bao and Er Bao were cut by the crow feathers, he did not react in time. Rosie's body exploded with intense malice for a moment. When almost all the crow feathers changed their direction of attack, he reacted. However, there were still 2 feathers left. However, he could only react, but his speed could not keep up. He was the person closest to Jiruo, but he only reacted after the 3 little fellows were injured one after another. Jiruo. Liang Shixian shouted in his heart, his eyes almost popping out. He reached out his hand to Jiruo, but his speed was like a turtle crawling in front of the hundred-eyed magic crow. He could even clearly see the contempt in the eyes of the hundred-eyed magic crow. Move. Move. Liang Shixian roared in his heart. There was no fear, only anger and unwillingness. They were already here. Why was he so weak? Why couldn't he break through to the Qi Meridian realm? I am the class monitor. What kind of class monitor is he if he can't protect his classmates? Liang Shixian's mind was unprecedentedly focused, and his heart was filled with unprecedented anger and unwillingness. He was angry at the hundred-eyed demon crow's sneak attack, and he was also angry at his own weakness. It was clearly close, but he was powerless to touch it. He blamed himself for not being able to protect his classmates. Jiruo was the one who took care of him during the martial exam. Liang Shixian felt that he was not competent at all as the class monitor. The strong will in his heart and his highly focused mind seemed to have triggered something. Liang Shixian suddenly felt as if time had slowed down. The hundred-eyed demon crow followed the 2 sharp black feathers and charged towards Jiruo. However, the speed was like a frame drop in the game. It was extremely slow. Liang Shixian only wanted to push Jiruo away and get him out of danger. However, as crow feathers' speed slowed down, Liang Shixian naturally became even slower. It was as if his thinking speed had been accelerated. Everything around him seemed to have come to a standstill. Liang Shixian felt that his body was extremely heavy, and the air was like a swamp that bound him. Hurry up! Faster! Liang Shixian roared in his heart. The strong desire to protect his classmates, the anger and courage that was fearless of life and death in that instant. All his thoughts suddenly merged into one, as if they had turned into a sharp sword that pierced through a shackle. His strong will was like a substance, piercing through the bridge of heaven and earth and stirring up spiritual energy. Qi Meridian, formed. With the infusion of the spiritual energy of heaven and earth, Liang Shixian instantly broke free from the shackles by relying on the powerful force of the leap in his life level when his Qi meridians were opened. His speed instantly exceeded the limit and he pushed Jiruo away. Liang Shixian's face was ferocious as he roared. His skin had long turned greenish-gray. With the help of the spiritual energy of heaven and earth, the strength of the iron skin technique had increased dramatically. His entire body was steaming, and his eyes were wide open with anger. Puff! Puff! The 2 crow feathers pierced through Liang Shixian's body. Originally, the 2 crow feathers were going to pierce through Liang Shixian's back and attack the heavily injured Gu Xingzhou. However, it only penetrated halfway before it was tightly clamped by Liang Shixian's muscles. Its speed dropped drastically, and it tried to leave Liang Shixian's body at an abnormally slow speed. Caw! Damn it! The hundred-eyed demon crow was shocked and furious. Just as he was about to use his main body to attack, Liang Shixian roared with a strong will, "Damn crow! Don't even think about hurting my teachers and classmates." He slammed his palms down and used all his strength to catch the hundred-eyed demon crow. Compared to demons, demons were not necessarily huge in size. Their evolution was more inclined to the spiritual aspect. The hundred-eyed demon crow reacted quickly. Its feathers rose and the bird suddenly spun at high speed in Liang Shixian's hand. Liang Shixian's iron cloak was like paper in front of this 4-star demonic creature. In the blink of an eye, his palms became a bloody mess. The flesh on his palms quickly disappeared, and even the bones inside could be faintly seen. But Liang Shixian refused to let go. He continued to activate the iron skin technique, and the spiritual energy that poured into his body continued to cleanse Liang Shixian's body. But even so, he couldn't take it. Liang Shixian knew very well that this was the last iron shirt. Caw, damn crows. You're courting death. An angry eagle cry sounded from the sky. A thick purple pillar of wind and lightning descended from the sky, like a divine sword thrown into the mortal world by a god. The hundred-eyed devil crow knew that the situation was not good. It did not expect the wind god falcon to return so quickly. It wanted to escape. However, how could Liang Shixian let it get what it wanted? Auntie. Here. He used all his strength to raise the hundred-eyed magic crow high in the air. The purple lightning bolt instantly passed through. The hundred-eyed magic crow didn't even have time to scream before its body was pecked through by the furious wind god falcon. Throughout the entire process, the wind god falcon did not even hurt Liang Shixian at all. Class monitor. Everything that happened just now seemed slow, but in fact, it happened in an instant. Jiruo only felt that he had just seen the sky full of crow feathers when he was pushed away by Liang Shixian. Before he could get up, the wind god falcon auntie arrived. Class monitor, how are you? Jiruo quickly supported Liang Shixian, who was on the verge of collapsing. At this moment, Liang Shixian had 2 penetrating wounds on his abdomen, and blood was flowing uncontrollably. However, Liang Shixian's hand seemed to be the most serious. He had used all his strength to catch the hundred-eyed demon crow, but his palms were cut by the sharp feathers of the hundred-eyed demon crow, and his flesh was completely gone. There were even terrifying cuts on the bones of his hands. Cough cough. Liang Shixian smiled with relief. Jiruo, don't worry about me. Let's take a look at little Rosie first. She's much more powerful than me. Jiruo bent down and picked up little Luo Qian with heartache. At this moment, little Luo Qian was covered in dense black crow feathers, turning into a hedgehog cat, whining non-stop. But it seemed that Luo Qian was in a much better state than Liang Shixian, at least she still had the strength to whine. Rosie's talent proved this point. Talent, strong ++, tenacity ++, taunt. Meow, 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 it hurts, it hurts, it hurts, help me pull out the feathers on my body. It hurts so much. Jiruo reached out to help Luo Qian pull out the crow feathers on her body, while he looked at Gu Xingzhou in a hurry and said anxiously, Teacher, please help me take a look at the class monitor's injury. Help me save him. Jiruo knew some first aid methods, but the current situation did not seem to be something that could be solved by first aid. Gu Xingzhou hurried over, feeling extremely ashamed he had failed to protect these 2 children again. Ondu Wind God Falcon was taking care of Debao and Erbao. Demons were born with strong physiques. They would not die from such injuries. However, the 2 little fellows were rolling on the ground and crying out in pain, which made the Wind God Falcon's aunt's heart ache. Liang Shixian saw that everyone was in trouble and smiled with some difficulty. Because his body was damaged, the spiritual energy of the enlightenment could not be retained in his body in a normal way. The amount of blood he lost was increasing, and his consciousness began to blur. It's good that I've done my duty. Chapter 67, Reminiscences Kill, 1. Chapter 67, Reminiscences Kill, 1. Memories of the past flooded his mind, and Liang Shixian was a little dazed. Elementary school. Daddy, Mommy. I'm the class monitor. On this day, Liang Shixian, who was only 6 years old, returned home with his school bag and excitedly shared his joy with his parents. His mother gently took the bag and rubbed Liang Shixian's head. Baby is awesome. Mom, don't call me baby anymore. Liang Shixian said shyly. I'm the class monitor now, so I need to be more dignified. His parents burst into laughter. Prestige. His father picked up Xiao Liang Shixian and placed him on his lap. He asked, then, son, what do you think a class monitor is? The class monitor is the most outstanding person in the class. The best child. My classmates are so envious of me. Yes, the most outstanding person and the best child. That's true, but not all of them. Class monitor, his father said, means responsibility. Do you know what responsibility it is? I know. Collect your homework. Yes, but not all of them. For example, when a classmate is in trouble, the class monitor has to shoulder the responsibility of helping the classmate. When a classmate was sad, he had to shoulder the responsibility of comforting the classmate. In the face of danger, the class monitor had to shoulder the responsibility of protecting his classmate's son. A person's excellence isn't considered truly outstanding. A person who can make the people around him like and respect him from the bottom of his heart is truly outstanding. The responsibility of the class monitor was to make all the students in the class outstanding. Xiao Liang Shixian seemed to understand. His mother gently patted his father and rebuked, "You're preaching again. Can't you say something to make your son happy?" His father smiled and looked at Xiao Liang Shixian seriously. Son, do you want to be a truly outstanding class monitor? Yes. Then work hard to shoulder the responsibility of the class monitor. Junior high. Today, Liang Shixian had a fight with students from other classes. The reason was that a student from another class was collecting protection fees from a student from his own class. He brought his classmates to argue with them, but they ended up fighting. As the class monitor, Liang Shixian had always been the most outstanding person in the class. Whether it was academic results or martial arts achievements, he was the best in the class. In this fight, there were 3 people on their side and 8 people on the other side. Liang Shixian and the others won. In this society where martial arts were revered by all, fights between students were called martial arts communication. The teacher did not blame him, but Liang Shixian was still very unhappy because his other 2 classmates were seriously injured and were hospitalized. Liang Shixian returned home with a bruised face. Faced with his mother's concern, Liang Shixian was a little depressed. He told his parents what happened today and said, "I'm sorry, Dad. Why should I apologize? I was wrong. Wrong place. I shouldn't have fought with the students from the other classes." His father shook his head slightly. "You're wrong, but you're right about this." "Why?" Liang Shixian was stunned. "Students from other classes bullied your classmates, and you helped them fight back. This is helping your classmates solve the problem. The only thing you did wrong was not protecting your classmates." Liang Shixian was silent. The father stood up and patted his son's shoulder, who was almost as tall as him. He said, "Let's go. Daddy will accompany you to see how those 2 students are injured." As the class monitor, he couldn't just ignore his classmate's injury. The father and son bought gifts and met the parents of the injured classmate at the hospital. Liang Shixian was originally worried that the parents would scold him. However, he didn't. After the parents knew that Liang Shixian was the class monitor, they were very enthusiastic. "Liang Shixian, it's all thanks to you this time. My child is a little introverted. He didn't say anything when he was bullied at school. Recently, he has been asking us for money. His father and I thought that this child was in love." The parents of the other student who had not been blackmailed and had only gone to the negotiation with Liang Shixian and ended up in the hospital did not blame him. "Liang Shixian, you did the right thing. A man should not cause trouble or be afraid of trouble. What was a little blood? What was there to be afraid of? This was the right fight. If others bully us, we have to fight back. Little class monitor, if such a thing happens again in the future, you still have to call my child." Liang Shixian looked at the injured student in confusion. The student was lying on the hospital bed with a thick bandage on his head. He smiled at Liang Shixian and said, "Class president, call me when you fight in the future." Later, Liang Shixian followed his father to visit the 8 students opposite him. Of course, they were also hospitalized. However, the parents of the students did not blame Liang Shixian. In the corridor of the hospital, Liang Shixian heard their parents scolding their children. "You still dare to collect protection fees? How capable? 8 against 3, you can't beat them. You're really embarrassing me." Crying. "How can you still have the face to cry? I'll give you a slap." The crisp sound of a slap echoed in the quiet hospital. The student cried even harder. On the way home, Liang Shixian looked at the setting sun and finally made up his mind. "Dad, I want to learn the iron skin technique." "Oh? Why?" "If a similar situation happens again in the future, I will definitely protect my classmates and shoulder the responsibility of the class monitor." His father smiled. "Good, then I'll learn the iron shirt." The images in his memory rose and fell like a tide. Liang Shixian looked back at his short life from the perspective of a bystander. He became more and more outstanding. With his help, the students in the class became more and more united. Liang Shixian gradually became someone else's child. At that time, Liang Shixian thought that this was probably what his father had said about being truly outstanding. Finally, the scene stopped at the moment when Jiruo hugged him anxiously. Liang Shixian suddenly smiled. "I just feel a little sorry for Teacher Li. I might not be able to hand in my last assignment in high school, however, he did not regret it. There was nothing to regret. If you can't go back, then so be it. After all, I'm the class monitor." There were wounds everywhere on De Bao and Er Bao's bodies. The wind god Falcon's aunt went to the 2 children's side and blew gently. Then, she looked up at the sacred mountain tree and said, "Chirp. Sacred mountain wood. I don't want these demon corpses anymore. I'll give them all to you in exchange for a few life fruits." At this moment, the slow sacred mountain wood finally reacted. "What's wrong?" At first, it was a little puzzled. Then, the thick tree trunk split open, revealing a small lake that emitted an extremely intense life aura. "There's no need to exchange. It's my fault for not paying attention just now. The pond of life inside the tree trunk began to surge. 5 handfuls of water slowly rose into the air and condensed into 5 crystal clear fruits. They were rolled up by the mountain god tree's branches and sent to all the injured. Thank you, Grandpa Shenmue. Jiruo was pleasantly surprised. You're welcome. We've hooked our fingers before and are already friends. Without much delay, Jiruo opened Liang Shixian's mouth, which was already beginning to lose consciousness, and stuffed the life fruit into it. Gu Xingzhou opened his mouth and said, Don't this. The life fruit melted in his mouth, and the wounds on Liang Shixian's body began to heal at a speed visible to the naked eye. The missing flesh and blood were also rapidly recovering. Then, Jiruo quickly pulled out the crow feathers on Luo Jian's body and fed her a life fruit. He urged Gu Xingzhou, Teacher, you should eat too. Your injuries are not light either. Classmate Jiruo, a crow feather just cut off your class monitor's appendix. Gu Xingzhou looked at Jiruo in a daze. The life fruit was a 4-star support type spiritual fruit. It contained extremely dense life essence. It could not revive the dead, but it could flesh and bones. Usually, a person who lost an arm or a leg could grow it back after eating a life fruit. This kind of spirit fruit grew in an extremely harsh environment, and there were no specific methods to cultivate it. As a result, the price was extremely high in Great Xia. Jiruo had only read about the life fruit in the textbooks. He lowered his head to take a look. The wound on Liang Shixian's abdomen had completely healed, and even the missing flesh on his hands had mostly grown back. As a 4-star support type spiritual fruit, the life fruit was very effective. Liang Shixian's breathing gradually stabilized, and his face, which had become abnormally pale due to the massive loss of blood, slowly regained its color. Not only that, but the remaining energy of the life fruit was also correcting it to a certain extent. Jiruo saw that Liang Shixian's face had a few small pimples that had fallen off because he had not been able to rest well in the Myriad Beast Mountain for the past few days. Moreover, he had eaten a lot of fish and meat. He scratched his head awkwardly. Haha, it's good that class monitor is fine. Teacher, Ondu Wind God Falcon has brought the pot over. Let's get ready to eat. Gu Xingzhou silently glanced at Liang Shixian, who was lying on the ground and breathing steadily. The child's appendix, which had just been removed by the crow feather due to luck, had probably grown back. Other than the newly grown appendix, there was also a wild appendix, the one that had just been removed. In order to hide his embarrassment, Jiruo had already run to the side to get busy. Gu Xingzhou took a deep breath. What a sin! Chapter 68, Jinglan. Chapter 68, Jinglan. Jiruo was using the iron palm to cook. Perhaps because the ingredients were too high grade, it was difficult to cook them quickly with the current level of the iron palm. Therefore, perhaps it was because of the stimulation of this kind of aura, the proficiency of Jiruo's iron palm increased rapidly, and it had already reached the level of perfection. His palms were extremely black, black to the extreme, and even slightly white, black to the point of shining. As his mastery of the skill increased, Jiruo's iron palm was still slowly approaching the 5th level, the superb. He could even rely on his blood essence power to send out a flaming palm print that was 3 meters away from his body. At this stage, the iron palm could no longer be called the iron palm. Martial techniques like the iron palm were the prerequisite for learning some higher level martial techniques. It was normal for them to suddenly become another martial technique as they practiced. Gu Xingzhou ate the life fruit and felt the pure life force healing his injuries. Even his ruptured acupoints were slowly healing. He sighed in his heart. His future path was not broken, but he would need to spend some energy to reopen his aperture point starjade. Looking at the wind god Sun Auntie who was still coaxing the child, Gu Xingzhou suddenly said, Wind god Falcon, thank you for taking care of these 2 children during this period of time. He knew that Ondu Wind god Sun could understand his words. It was one of the characteristics of a 4-star demon to speak human language. It was not that demons would naturally be able to master human language. After reaching this stage, it was just that demons at this stage had evolved to a higher level, and their bodies were more versatile. Whether or not he could say it and whether or not he knew how to say it were 2 different things. If one wanted to master the human language, they still had to learn it. Ondu Wind god Sun frowned and said in a hoarse voice, Don't call me Wind God Falcon, that's the name of my race, not my name. Then, what should I call you? I haven't thought about it yet. Ondu, it's been a few days. You still haven't thought about it? Jiruo interrupted. Because it's hard to imagine. Then why don't I help you think of one? If you want to help me think of a name, I'll have a few requirements. The name must be nice and suitable for my identity. It can't be too cliché. The reason why Ondu Wind god Falcon hadn't come up with a satisfactory name for herself after such a long time was mainly because she was uncultured. Ondu, your current appearance shouldn't be considered a complete transformation, right? Jiruo asked after some thought. Do you know what you look like after surviving the star tribulation? Give me a brief description for reference. The advancement of a fiendish demon from 4-star to 5-star was a hurdle. It needed to go through a calamity called the star calamity. The manifestation of a star calamity was not constant, but in most cases, it was manifested in the form of a lightning strike. After passing the star tribulation, one's life essence would rise. If one couldn't pass it, one would die. Star tribulation. What's the point of crossing that thing? On to wind god. Falcon said indifferently. Now, there's no longer anything in Myriad Beast Mountain that can threaten me. I'm eating and drinking well in Myriad Beast Mountain, and Dubao and Erbao are still so young. Why should I undergo a star tribulation? In my inherited memories, the star tribulation is extremely painful. Jiruo sighed. The bloodline of the wind god Falcon was considered one of the strongest among the demons. Usually, when a demon underwent a star tribulation, they would consider whether they would die or not. However, the wind god Falcon would consider whether it would hurt or not. Auntie, what do you plan to do in the future? Pondering for a moment, Jiruo decided to refer the wind god Falcon's conditions. Me? Usually, if there's nothing much to do, I'll stay in the nest and occasionally come out to fly around. Now that he had the two treasures, he would probably spend a lot of time taking care of the children in the future. What a freaking otaku. Pondering for a moment, Jiruo said, then how about your name is Jinglan? Jinglan. Onto wind god Falcon tilted her head. That's right, auntie. You're the most beautiful monster I've ever seen. You're noble and elegant. It's hard to describe your temperament with ordinary words. Jiruo explained seriously. The word quiet not only expressed your indifferent personality, but also indirectly expressed your unique style of doing things among the demons. Mist refers to the fog in the mountains. Have you ever seen fog? The fog in the morning is hazy and dreamy, and the fog in the evening is mysterious and gorgeous. It just suits your temperament. The title of foreign affairs speaker continued to work, and onto wind god Falcon was very satisfied. If you really can speak. Jiruo grinned. In fact, his thoughts were not that complicated. Quiet meant that this auntie was a homebody bird, and Lan meant that she lived on the mountain with the wind. Attribute. The auntie turned to look at Gu Xingzhe. He took a deep breath. Seeing this child named Jiruo name the wind god Falcon with just a few words, the emotions that had just been brewing could no longer be connected. He was the one with the strangest relationship. Gu Xingzhe coughed dryly and said, well, Jinglan, call me auntie. Jinglan said seriously. I'm 373 years old this year, said Jinglan. They couldn't continue chatting this day. Ahem, student Jiruo, is there anything I can help you with? The food should be ready soon, right? Jiruo chuckled. Soon, soon. I plan to make some cold food first. Let's eat first. Put the cooked food in the pot and cook it for a while. We'll eat hot pot. We still have a lot of time anyway. Cough cough, I'm here to help you. In the end, Gu Xingzhe did not call her auntie. Jiruo wasn't lying when he said that there was still time. By the time the battle ended, it was already past midnight. At daybreak, Jiruo and Liang Shixian would be leaving Myriad Beast Mountain. And the martial examination would officially end. However, the sacred mountain tree discovered a very serious problem when it was adjusting the earth veins. The death of the earth-overturning dragon had a greater impact on the earth vein than it had imagined. Even now, other areas of the Myriad Beast Mountain were also experiencing small-scale geological changes. Although the earthworm's corpse was still alive, it was missing the most important thing. It was dead. When it was still alive, it was a living manifestation of the Myriad Beast Mountain's earth vein. Now that the earth-overturning dragon was dead, the earth vein lost its restraint and would only become more and more chaotic. However, it was not a big problem. In theory, the sacred mountain wood could be considered to be of the same origin as the overturning earth dragon. It could become the new living body of the 10,000 Beast Mountain. Therefore, it began to absorb and refine the earthworm's corpse. Because it was of the same origin, the corpse of the earth-flipping dragon did not resist the absorption of the sacred mountain wood. It was just that the speed was a little slow. The secret realms and Great Xia were in two different space-time zones. Each secret realm was a small world with incomplete laws. The Myriad Beast Mountain mystic realm had its own rules. When the Earth Vein Management Authority was handed over, the time flow at the peak of the mountain became abnormally slow. The other areas were not affected, only the summit. Therefore, Jiruo and Liang Shixian needed to stay in the secret realm for a while longer. It wouldn't take long for everyone to eat and drink their fill, and it would probably end. Chapter 69, Chapter 69, Cherry Blossoms Falling on the Snow Mountain, 1. Chapter 69, Cherry Blossoms Falling on the Snow Mountain, 1. A few strong tree demon brothers formed a circle and surrounded the rock dragon lizard's eggshell that Aunt Jinglan had brought. Inside the eggshell were all kinds of demon beast meat that had been processed long ago, as well as all kinds of seasonings that the tree demon brothers had contributed. Jiruo stood right under the eggshell, raising both of his hands high up. His iron palms were extremely white, and the flame seemed to have solidified. A layer of extremely hot white halo condensed on Jiruo's palms, sticking to the bottom of the eggshell and acting as a human-shaped stove. Now, his iron palm had already surpassed the scope of the regular iron palm and could be considered a higher-level martial technique. However, to save trouble, Jiruo called it iron palm. To be honest, this was the first time he had seen someone use iron palm to cook hot pot. Moreover, wasn't it a little too ridiculous for a high school student to be able to practice the iron palm to the acme of perfection in the martial examination? However, when he thought about what Jiruo had done in this martial examination, Gu Xingzhou felt that it made sense. Poof. The water in the pot had already boiled. The meat pieces, various spirit herbs, and spirit fruits were rolling in it, and the fragrance spread everywhere. Meow meow dash, smells so good. Luo Qian kept circling Jiruo, unable to wait any longer. Aunt Jinglin, teacher, it's almost ready. You guys eat first. I'll cook for a while. Jiruo stood at the bottom of the pot and smiled. Rosie, you go eat too. At this moment, there was no other material on the top of the mountain that could be used to make a fire. The tree demon brothers were all good trees. How could they be used to cook hot pot? Auntie Jinglan and the two babies were not humans, so they did not know what politeness meant. The three foodies could not wait any longer and started eating. De Bao and Erbao were scalded by the boiling soup, and they kept chirping. However, he couldn't resist the alluring delicacy. He ate and drank while squealing. Rosie hurriedly ran over and hopped up to get it, but she could not reach it no matter how hard she tried. Meow, meow, meow dash, give me some. Eat some. I can't reach it. Aunt Jinglan used a breeze to lift him up and brought him to the side of the pot. The three birds and one cat ate happily. Gu Xingzhou picked up a stone the size of a human head and forcefully dug a groove in it with his palm. He then found a tree demon brother and broke off two small branches to serve as chopsticks. He scooped a bowl of meat soup and went to Jiruo's side. Classmate Jiruo, you've been working hard. I can't let you keep cooking here, so I'll feed you something first. The eggshell of the rock dragon lizard, the flesh and blood of a 4-star demon beast, and a large number of spirit herbs and spirit fruits as ingredients. The essence contained in this pot of food was something that even the ancient star continent was envious of. However, he knew very well that all of this was Jiruo's credit. Moreover, Jiruo was only in the Chi Meridian realm now, so the benefits of eating these things were much greater than those of the ancient star continent. In a sense, being weak was equivalent to having a high upper limit. Thank you, teacher. Jiruo did not refuse. He was also greedy. Suddenly dash. The ground beneath Jiruo's feet started to move, and the earth wall rose up, surrounding Jiruo and Gu Xingzhou. The sacred mountain tree's deep voice sounded, Little Ruo, you guys go ahead and eat. I'll cook for you. Half of the earth overturning dragon's corpse had already disintegrated, and the appearance of the sacred mountain tree had changed greatly. Its body became even larger, and its roots spread along the earth veins to more than half of the myriad beast mountain. Some pink gradually appeared in the veins of the twisted tree trunk. The divine tree of the mountain was evolving. At this moment, its life form was between the plant-type demon and the flesh-type demon. The green leaves on his head were also gradually turning pink. Thank you, Grandpa Shenmue. Jiruo said happily. He and Gu Xingzhou left the pot and the ground at the bottom of the pot split open under the control of the sacred mountain tree, revealing the boiling lava below. This was volcanic cuisine. In a daze, Liang Shixian felt the pain quickly subside, and then an indescribable warmth wrapped around him. Was this death? He thought to himself. What a warm feeling. If this was the ending, it didn't seem too bad. He sighed. Liang Shixian suddenly heard a strange sound. Little rabbit, be good, open the door. Meow meow meow. Chirp chirp chirp. Liang Shixian was a little confused. How could he still hear Jiruo's children's song when he was already dead? No. He suddenly opened his eyes and sat up. Yeah. Class monitor, you're awake. Jiruo came over in surprise. I thought you were going to sleep a little longer. Quick, we haven't finished our hot pot yet. Class monitor, you made it? I didn't die. What do you mean by dead or not? Liang Shixian was speechless. Jiruo's face was serious. Bah. Jiruo smiled. Liang Shixian subconsciously touched the place where he had been pierced. Other than the tear on his clothes, his skin was smooth to the touch. Where was the wound? He suddenly froze and looked down at his hands. It grew back. Other than her skin looking a little pink and fair, there didn't seem to be any changes. My wounds, done. Ahem. Liang Shixian, Congratulations on surviving the disaster, Gu Xingzhou suddenly said. But there's something I want to. Teacher, let me do the talking. Ji Ruo smiled awkwardly and said seriously to Liang Shixian, class monitor, I have two pieces of good news to tell you. Which one do you want to hear first? Liang Shixian was speechless. He was a little confused. Wait for me to think it through normally, shouldn't it be good news and bad news? What do you mean by two pieces of good news? That's not wrong. Ji Ruo nodded. Liang Shixian pursed his lips. The good news is that I've already checked you. Of the two feathers that penetrated your body, one passed between your liver and gallbladder, while the other removed your appendix. Ji Ruo smiled. Class monitor, you're truly treating each other with all your heart. Class monitor, you can show off with this when you go back. Liang Shixian subconsciously looked down at his abdomen and was silent for a moment. What about my appendix? Ji Ruo clapped his hands. This is another piece of good news. Grandpa Shan Shenmu gave us a few life fruits just now. I fed you one and your injuries recovered quickly. The good news was that there were two appendages in the class monitor's stomach. Are you happy? What was there to be happy about? He was originally quite happy to know that he was not dead. Although he had completed his responsibility, who would want to die if he could live? However, Ji Ruo's sudden act had made his emotions a little incoherent. Two appendixes. While Liang Shixian was feeling depressed, Ji Ruo suddenly took out a large piece of eggshell with a smile on his face. The piece contained the feast that Ji Ruo had carefully prepared for Liang Shixian. It was the best part of all kinds of 4-star demon beasts. Even the spirit herbs and fruits used as ingredients were plucked from the sacred mountain wood. Ji Ruo didn't know when Liang Shixian would wake up, and Aunt Jinglan's family's appetite was too big. Ji Ruo was afraid that Liang Shixian wouldn't be able to eat, so she prepared it in advance. After all, Liang Shixian had saved Ji Ruo 1.3 times in this martial examination. He didn't manage to save her last time, so it didn't count. Here, class monitor, eat quickly. They're all good things. I specially saved them for you. Ji Ruo. Liang Shixian hesitated. He still had a wild appendix in his stomach. Could he eat it? Gu Xingzhou seemed to have noticed Liang Shixian's hesitation. He coughed dryly and said, Liang Shixian, eat. I've checked your body. There won't be any problems. Your appendix. After he went back, he would go to the hospital for surgery to take it out. All right then. After eating and drinking to his heart's content, the sky had already turned bright. Unlike the myriad beast mountain of the past, the sun and moon of the myriad beast mountain had been refined by the demons on the top of the mountain using some kind of secret treasure. Although there was a distinction between day and night, there was no sun or moon rising into the sky. Now that those guys were dead, the sun and moon were no longer restrained, and the morning sun shone brightly. Ji Ruo looked at the sky and knew that it was time for him to leave. Grandpa Shenmue, Auntie Jinglan, and De Bao and Er Bao, it's about time. We have to go back. Chirp dash, Master, where are you going? De Bao asked blankly. Chiu Xingqiao also said, Chirp Master, aren't you going to play with us? Ji Ruo smiled and rubbed De Bao's head. Of course, I'm going home. Master hasn't been home for a few days. Look, Master's clothes are tattered. De Bao and Er Bao were a little disappointed. Chirp dash, then Master, will you still come and play with us in the future? Of course, you guys are my disciples. Aunt Jinglan said, Chirp dash, little Ruo, come and play often when you have time. You are always welcome here. Don't forget our agreement. At this moment, the divine mountain tree had completely refined the earth, overturning Dragon's corpse and controlled the entire myriad beast mountain's earth veins. Its roots spread throughout the entire myriad beast mountain and quickly combed through the earth veins. It had fused into the myriad beast mountain's secret realm and became the living symbol of the entire secret realm's earth vein. Its realm had risen, and it was only a star tribulation away from reaching the 5-star level. The green leaves on the tree turned into pink cherry blossoms. They were both plant demons and flesh demons. Don't worry, Grandpa Mountain God Mew. I won't forget it. Ji Ruo picked up Luo Qian and placed her on top of his head. Together with Liang Shixian, they smiled and said goodbye to all the demons. Gu Xingzhou didn't interrupt. The smile on Ji Ruo's face made him slightly dazed. The pure happiness that came from the bottom of his heart made Gu Xingzhou sigh. To be able to get along so well with the demon race, the legendary pure heart of a child was probably only so much, right? He knew very well that Ji Ruo's future was limitless. As he thought about this, Gu Xingzhou suddenly laughed. Child, I hope you can continue to be happy like this. He thought to himself. Suddenly, Ji Ruo took off his watch and said, before we leave, let's take a photo together. The young man asked the mountain god tree to extend its branches, held up his watch, and pulled Gu Xingzhou and Liang Shixian to his side. He let Aunt Jinglan and her family stand behind him, bringing the huge mountain god tree and the seemingly endless tree demons into the shooting range. He showed a pair of scissors hands and a bright smile appeared on his face. Everyone, say it together, eggplant. Rustle. The sacred mountain tree shook its crown, and its pink leaves rustled as if it was waving goodbye. Countless pink cherry blossoms fell on the snow that had not completely melted on the mountaintop. Cherry blossoms fell on the snow and ice all over the mountain. Kaka. The image was frozen by his watch. Jiruo took back his watch, turned around, and waved his hand. Then, goodbye, everyone. The exam was over. Jiruo and Liang Shixian's bodies were suddenly swallowed by a blood-red vortex and left the Myriad Beast Mountain secret realm. Aunt Jing Ian's family was quite reluctant to part with her. The tree demons on the mountain rubbed the leaves. The rustling sounds were filled with sadness. The first volume, Martial Examination, crossed out, Spring Outing, finished. Chapter 70, Return and Waiting, 1. Chapter 70, Return and Waiting, 1. Why haven't you left yet? After a short moment of sadness, Aunt Jinglan looked at Gu Xingzhou, who was still standing at the same spot, with some doubt. Gu Xingzhou also felt a little sore. That's right. Why haven't I left yet? Due to the many unforeseen circumstances, the ancient star continent had lost the teleportation device they had brought with them. The people who had come to the Myriad Beast Mountain secret realm to rescue them were different from the examines. The examines came in through the Martial Examination's mystic realm teleportation device. Every examinee had a special teleportation mark on their body. No matter what happened during the examination, no matter if the wristwatch was lost or not, once the examination was over, the examines would return to Great Xia, regardless of whether they were dead or alive. However, the ancient star continent was different. Their teleportation marks were imprinted on the secret plane teleportation devices that they had brought in. Now that the equipment was lost, the only thing that returned to Great Xia was the imprint. The ancient star continent was currently unable to be teleported back, and could only be teleported through the gate. Cough cough. Actually, I have something to discuss with the sacred mountain tree. Gu Xingzhou changed the topic and said, Sacred mountain tree, I want to discuss a deal with you. I hope that you can keep your promise to classmate Jiruo. In exchange, He didn't mention it before because Jiruo was really happy, and Gu Xingzhou couldn't bear to destroy this pure happiness. Now that Jiruo and Liang Shixian had finished their exams and returned to Great Xia, Gu Xingzhou could talk business with Shen Mu. He wanted to protect Jiruo's happiness. If Xiaoji is my friend, I swear on the earth vein that I won't go back on my word. You don't have to tell me that. The sacred mountain tree said matter-of-factly, we've ticked it. He had originally thought that the sacred wood tree was just a joke. He did not expect it to be true. The sacred mountain wood had already fused with the earth vein. Making an oath with the earth vein was already a very important oath. However, it was still not safe. This kind of oath was actually useless. You can't go back, right? The sacred mountain tree suddenly asked. I don't feel the power of traveling through time from you. Ha 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 ha, how is that possible? I really have something to discuss with you, that's why I stayed. I'm serious. I want to represent Great Xia's education department to make a deal with you, Gu Xingzhou said seriously. Aunt Jinglan did not have much of a relationship with the ancient star continent, and she was not interested in any transactions in the ancient star continent. After bidding farewell to the sacred mountain tree, she left the mountain top with De Bao and Er Bao and returned to the nest. Chirp dash, divine mountain tree, I'll go back first. If there are other guys who want to find trouble with you, you can contact me. Right now, there's no one in Myriad Beast Mountain who can be our match. Alright. What deal? Shenmu asked Gu Xingzhou. The contents of the deal are what you and Jiruo have agreed on. Although the sacred mountain wood had already sworn on the earth vein, the ancient star continent still felt that it was not safe. If the sacred mountain tree broke the contract, how sad would Jiruo be? He wanted to add a layer of insurance to Jiruo's agreement. This insurance was also beneficial to Great Xia. It was killing two birds with one stone. That child can't get much fertilizer alone. If you're willing to be on good terms with the humans, I can represent Great Xia to cooperate with you. In the future, you can provide all kinds of spiritual herbs and fruits, and Great Xia will provide you with fertilizers. The sacred mountain tree was silent for a moment. Because of Jiruo, the sacred mountain tree had become the biggest winner tonight. It had become the absolute ruler of the Myriad Beast Mountain secret realm, the existence that controlled the entire earth vein. Not only for now, but even his future meals were settled. Therefore, it had a good impression of people who were related to Jiruo. Moreover, if Jiruo promised to provide it with fertilizer, it would be the same for the ancient star continent. It was the same agreement, and it would not suffer any losses either way, so why would it not agree? But you have to pull the hook. Shenmue said. It stretched out the branch that it had hooked with Jiruo earlier and brought it in front of Gu Xingzhou. Gu Xingzhou was stunned for a moment before he extended his little finger. Then pull the hook. Hang yourself for 100 years. Shenmue imitated Jiruo and made an agreement with Gu Xingzhou. After the agreement was made, both sides fell silent. Gu Xingzhou did not know what else to say. The sacred mountain wood was not good with words. 10 minutes later. You left a message in the earth vein, the sacred mountain tree suddenly said. You asked other humans to save you, right? The sacred mountain wood that controlled the earth vein was now able to gather all the information that was stored in the myriad beast mountain's earth vein. You said in your message that your teleportation device was lost. Gu Xingzhou, ha 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 ha, did you find out? How embarrassing. There are a few humans outside the mountain peak trying to get in here. They should be here to pick you up. Do you need me to help you let them in? Then I'll have to trouble you. Yunchang First Middle School. Flag raising square. There were a total of 863 candidates participating in this martial examination. Perhaps because they were lucky, most of the students were relatively close to each other after being teleported. Or perhaps it was because of the education policy of Yunchang First Middle School. Yunchang First Middle School was the best middle school in the entire Yunchang. It was not that the students in Yunchang First Middle School were strong, but that the mortality rate of Yunchang First Middle School's annual martial arts examination was the lowest in the province. The main direction of martial arts teaching in Noel Middle School was all kinds of escape techniques. The first reaction of most students when they encountered danger was to run away as fast as they could. It was almost a conditioned reflex. In short, many people in Yunchang First Middle School were injured this time. There were even a few who were missing arms and legs. However, because the martial examination had only started for less than half a day, the higher UPS had already reacted and organized a rescue. A large number of martial artists poured into the Myriad Beast Mountain secret realm to participate in the rescue. On the first day of the martial examination alone, 655 people from No. 1 Middle School were rescued. And because of the large-scale geological change that happened on the third day, for some unknown reason, almost all the examines and patrolling martial artists were moved to the vicinity of the entrance of the mystic realm by the earth vein. On the third day, the number of students rescued reached 861. The search and rescue continued, but the number did not change after that. Yunchang First Middle School had saved 861 people from 863 people. This loss did not seem to be a big one. But life couldn't be counted like that. More than 70% of the students were injured, and more than 20% of them had broken limbs. It was the only class that did not have any students injured, and it was also the only class that did not have any students return. Those 2 students who didn't make it back, I'm afraid. The students from the other classes had already returned. After the school had calculated the casualties, they were allowed to go home. Those students also had families. Their families were also worried, and it was not good to keep them in school. Only the students of grade 12 class 4 volunteered to stay behind and wait for their classmates who had not returned. Part 3 of the series ends here. If you enjoyed it, please give us a like and subscribe so we can be motivated to make even better videos in the future.